J Squad.
We gotta find. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing today? Oh, it's a Good Friday night, and something interesting has happened out there. So we're going to have to take a look at it today. It looks like Steam has started taking down a few games. Yep. Looks like the Mercy game caused a little friction on the back end, and now Steam has been has been culled. We're going to get into that in a minute. First, for any who may have been paying attention to the background game of Rimworld that I've been playing, I had a colony that I was doing on stream. Well, I played it off stream a little bit, and it got wiped. So I'm gonna stop playing. I'm gonna stop playing those ones off stream, and we're just gonna stick to doing it on stream. Hold on one second. So we're gonna start a new colony here today. I've got a little kind of setup here for it. Boom, boom, boom. That was spoilers. There we go. So we're gonna do just basic crash landed. We're gonna see if we can get a grav ship up and going eventually, and go from there. I like Strives to Survive, even though I die quite a bit on it. I don't really want to do the anomaly stuff, but I want them to come in. What else do we got? The seed. The seed. Let's generate here and see what we get. Find ourselves a nice spot. Built a nice little ideology for it. It should be interesting. We'll do this as our little opener to get us started. Where should we go? There's a lot of... Do like a river. It's tropical rainforest. This one's got a lot of stuff going on in it. Do we do a lake? Do we do by the ocean? That's one of the new ones. I don't want to be on an island, though. I want people to still be able to come over to me. There's some locations here. Let's temperate forest. That's a big. What does that one got? No, I don't think we're going to go there. Don't think we're going to do. Let's see what else we got. I want to try out some of the new ones here soon, but I just want to try and get used to the new gameplay stuff. Cannibal village in the desert. Well, we're not cannibals, but I mean, I don't mind a desert. I like the oasis. The oasis are great now. It is such a good change. There's not a lot out here, though. Let's see. Well, I guess we have what? These guys are cannibals, I believe. So let's go here then. Let's go in the desert. Extreme desert. If you're going to do it, go extreme. Little oasis, though, kind of makes it a little easier. Yeah, searing heat. Got it. Now, I already created an ideology. Create. And we're going to show it off here. We got the Legions of Carl. So for that, we're supremacist. Of course, we're transhumans. Raiders. So we got all the stuff there with that. I haven't really changed the names much. Thought Lover. That's funny. Snipe Eye. But there we go. We're going to be the Legions of Carl. And we're going to take over the world with our anti-woke slaves that we that we take upon us. Boom. What do we got? Not bad little spread. That guy. Intellectual, medical, social, but he can't fight. Don't say transhuman. People will hear trans and build a website to cancel it. I'm surprised they haven't yet. Not understanding the words. The anti-woke are coming for... Oh, man, damn, this guy's stacked. Staggeringly ugly, though. I mean, that's cool, bud. I understand. But you won't clean. Sammy, you're coming on board because you're just good at everything. Sammy's good at everything. What else we got? If y'all want to do any name changes, we can do that too. Oh, he's got cooking and plants. Sammy can't do those. So Cohen. Boop, boop, boop. He's a little bit more of a fighter. Oh, Cohen can't fight. I don't want guys who can't fight. You got to be able to fight if you want to be in this supremacist group. We may have to crafting and a few others. Let's get him over there. Let's get you out of there. No cooking, no construction. That's no good. Well, construction 5. That's not bad. Cooking 3. If Jeff went to the mechanic and he heard his transmission needs to be fixed, he'd say, it's trying to silence him. Ghost trying to silence. Oh, shit. That's a good one. I like that. He might be our other one. Boom. I can find miners later. Okay. Let me say that I can find people who can mine later, like children. But I think this will do. Do we want to change their names? Sammy, Steven, and Sam. Really? Really? What should the names be? What should we go with? We'll change the... No, don't get clipped now. That's probably going to be the staple of me being online is getting clipped. We'll go with Winsome. Winsome, Steve, all of them. Boom. Generating into the map. Of course, we awaken. Oh, this is nice. Like, see these maps? These are so good now. Just diverse. Of course, no animals. All right. So we're going to get started building on the colony, but I also want to look at this new drama with Steam and them deleting tons of, I guess, rape and lolly and other types of degenerate porn from their library because of either Mastercard and Visa, or Mastercard or Visa. I don't know. So we'll find out what's going on. And someone sent me this video where it's, oh no, it's Alex. I see the guy on Twitter all the time, but I've never interacted with him. So let's see what he has to say about this drama, get us up to date on what's going on.
One of the best memes that my community has in fact created is when they found my Steam account during a live stream, and then it's become now an actual running gag that while I'm streaming, they are going to be sending me video games on Steam. Not just any video games, the most debaucherous, the most lecherous, the most honestly.
But seriously, I've been thinking of getting into Rimworld, but haven't had the time. It looks really kick-ass. I'm hunting for a Final Fantasy tactics hacks. Oh, that's what you're doing right now. Dude, if you like, Rimworld to me is like one of the best games out there. It's a colony builder, but really it's about the stories, because all sorts of weird shit can happen in this game. I recommend it 100%. It's my number one game. I always come back to it. Right now I have about 700 hours in it. So if you pick it up, Final Fantasy Tactics Hacks. I didn't know. Well, I mean, I guess you could hack any game, but but they got the new one coming out. I'm excited about Final Fantasy Tactics coming out. I know some people aren't because you have to hate on Square Enix because they're gay. But anyway, I love colony builders. Yeah, and this one's one of the most unique. It's actually more like, I'll show you a little bit here. So everyone has the bio, right? They'll get a childhood, they'll get furniture, and then they'll get abilities. Like this guy is a night owl, which means he's only going to be happy if he works at night. He's a slowpoke, so he doesn't move that fast, and then he's beautiful, so it adds to the beauty of everything around him. But he won't do dumb labor like hauling or cleaning. But then they have needs. So uniform thoughts is one. This guy is sick from just coming out of cryo sleep. These other ones are not. She's sick too. And then they'll get different things. Like you get one of the memes of the community is eating. Pawns get mad if they eat when not at a table. They just pisses them off that they can't sit down at a table and eat. Even so to the point that someone made a mod where if they don't eat at a table, they die. Woke world. Well, I mean, they do have transhumans. I'm pretty sure you could switch the sex of a person in this game. We'll see. We'll see if we can accomplish it today. But anyway, let's get back to Alex and figure out what debauchery is going on here.
Disturbing games you can find on the platform and making me accept them to my Steam account while I am streaming. No, I'm not kidding. Just take a gander at some of these bad boys right over here.
Jesus Christ.
That's been kind of fun to see and open up while you're live and then have to just sit there and say, thank you for the gift. I appreciate it. The thing is, though, it turns out that these games are basically under attack.
Hey, sorry about that. My son came in. His Toy Story toy broke. Do you know anyone who'd cry about not being able to play my stepmom in Inventory 2? Oh, maybe.
Not just the games, though, your actual ability as an adult and consumer to make the decisions on what you want to purchase with your hard-earned money on a platform is what's under attack. You see, I'm not a fan of...
I think this is being a little hyperbolic on it, right? He's probably going to get into it, but so far from what I've seen, we'll see if it changes my mind, is that it's not... Steam, yes, is a platform, and they're stopping it from being on that platform, but they're not taking away your ability to, buy these games, right? You just have to buy it on a different market.
Censorship in many senses of the word, because in all respect, who the f are you to tell me what to do? But the thing is, it turns out that payment processors are trying to be the morality police. A bunch of people just walking around the table deciding where you put your money and how you spend it to determine what they feel is appropriate.
Jesus Christ, this isn't censorship. Yeah, and that's my point in it. Like people always go to the extreme, and it looks like Alex is going in that same direction, that it's censorship, it's censorship. No one's making the game illegal. Like, we don't sell hardcore porn on Amazon, right? Because that's just, we don't go into a Walmart and look up, there's not a hardcore porn section for it. Due to avoid Alex like the plague, he's into Fanta porn. It does. Okay, yes, Kamoji, you're right. It feels oppressive. And I don't like the fact that it's a credit card group doing it. But on the same note, it's not the same as the government coming in and saying, hey, we're taking this away. So, but let's see if he changes my mind.
For you to buy, and it can fall down a massive slippery slope that honestly everyone wants to go down.
I hate it. Just straight off, I hate that. This is not a slippery slope situation.
Here's what's going on. According to Niche Gamer, they tweeted the other day, Steam updates its rules to comply with payment processor censorship, purges multiple titles, details below. Now, honestly, that seems a little bit intense if you ask me. I've never been a fan of having a company or corporation try to dictate to me what I can and cannot purchase, especially a company...
Steam bent the knee.
My actual money. Telling me what I can and can't buy with my own money kind of rubs me the wrong way. But let's see what's...
But they're not telling you can't buy it with your own money. They're telling you can't buy it on Steam with your own money. Now, if the problem I have with it being the card manufacturer versus Steam doing it is they can do it across multiple platforms, right? They can call for the censorship across multiple platforms of doing it. And I'm sure the group that's calling for it is an activist group. But, one platform dropping it isn't the same as you never being able to buy it again.
It's actually happening in the article from Niche Gamer down below. Steam, the largest PC gaming platform, has recently updated their rules for developers to prohibit content that may run afoul of the nebulous standards of payment processors. According to Automaton, the new rules remain vague and directly mention how this restriction is mandated by payment processors, such as card networks and banks, saying that developers should not submit, and I quote, content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular, certain kinds of only content. Now, this isn't the first time this has actually occurred. In fact, many payment processors have done this already. They've done it to sites like OnlyFans, Fansly, Patreon, and DL Site, and many other sites in Japan as well, restricting what can and cannot be purchased with that actual payment provider, in effect, making a direct form of censorship.
The rules are vague as rage bait for I don't know what the rules are because I didn't research it or understand what it means. Yeah, I mean, that's usually the case for it. What's going on, Vincent? I mean, the thing with it's such a hard choice because, you know, Visa and Mastercard are these massive organizations and stuff like that, but it's also a representation of them, what people are allowed to buy on their website. And if they feel like the greater population is against this or having a problem with this, then yeah, they can do it. I think the biggest problem I have with it on Steam side is the fact that there is no real controls. Like if my son jumps on my Steam account or something like that and pulls up a game, that it's going to ask him if it's 18 plus, but it's not going to do anything else other than that. Now, he's, you know, too young to buy, so he wouldn't be able to buy the stuff, but it's just way too open. Like, I don't see a reason that you need to have, just the way porn sites are separated from regular sites. I think there should be a separation between porn games and regular gaming sites. Not that it should go away. It should be in there. Steam porn games are hidden by default, though. Yeah, but all you have to do, I see them. I don't know if that's the truth because I've never turned off the default and I still have them show up sometimes on mine. You know, and all you have to do is type in the right thing. But that's the thing. You don't want that level of restriction when you have to prove you're this age and that. True. Well, that's the thing. I don't want to have to put my information on a website online, right? That's a thing that I have against what they've been doing to, or not OnlyFans, Pornhub, right? They made it so that you have to use your ID and stuff like that. There's understanding there, but I don't want porn sites aren't known for being great with anything. Why would I want them to have my personal information to be able to get on? I think there's a problem there. You got to go out of your way to get them to show up. Well, I can say I've never looked one up, Kamoji. I still will stand by that, though. I would rather them not be on the same site. There are sites that have porn games on them, and you know, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean?
For the actual customer and consumer, even though it is that consumer's direct money they are choosing to spend at these locations for that kind of content. It's one thing if it was the government saying, hey, this is illegal to purchase, you should not have this, and hey, yeah, totally, if it's that kind of content, I totally agree. It's another thing.
Wait, what? So you don't like when Visa does it, but you're okay if the government came in and said don't do it? Let me listen to that little portion again.
Effect, making a direct form of censorship for the actual customer and consumer, even though it is that consumer's direct money they are choosing to spend at these locations for that kind of content. It's one thing if it was the government saying, hey, this is illegal to purchase, you should not have this, and hey, yeah, totally, if it's that kind of content, I totally agree. It's another thing, though, when it is simply just legal content that is available for the consumer to purchase, and the actual payment processors are the ones refusing to complete the actual transaction because they want to have the morality check in place of what you can and cannot buy.
Yeah, I have some agreements with that. Like they shouldn't be stepping in and saying what you can and cannot buy. I don't think you want the government to litigate this stuff because I do not think the majority of these games would pass obscenity law, in which case they would end up becoming illegal anyway. But yeah, it's a bit more complex situation because Steam has all kinds of games with all age rates. I agree. I absolutely, I get it. It's more nuanced than just porn bad, right? I just, from a personal standpoint, and I'm a prude. This is coming from a very prude. I mean, I was in the military. I looked up. I was a 13-year-old boy. I've looked up porn. I don't have a problem with porn. I just think there's, like, from a personal view, I think there should be a separation, specifically with porn, and even like maybe gratuitous. Well, no, I can't even say that. Like, I'm fine with it mirroring like our other media sources, is I guess what I would say. Third generation Army kid. Nice. I was Army National Guard for 19 years. So weekend warriors. But I get what he's saying. Yes, I don't think Visa or Mastercard should be making this decision, right?
In fact, I'm not the only one that feels this way. Asmongold replied to the niche game.
No one gives a fuck what Asmongold says.
Payment processor monopolistic censorship is one of the biggest unchecked cartels right now. Regulation is needed to either break up these companies or guarantee a degree of service. It's not a free market, quote unquote, when every company operates collectively.
Okay, so what do you want to do? You want them to come in and separate these payment providers? So now we have to have more cards because one payment provider might not want to sell this product or might not want to have this product running through its systems? That doesn't seem like the answer. Uniform is uniform. That's right. That is right. But getting government involved in this is even worse because we already have government involved in money transfers and things like that. What's the option besides having them take over what Visa does and Mastercard does, right? I mean, monopolies, maybe you could try and break them up, but then we would just have like Visa Plus, Visa Antoine, Visa New York. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that, but I don't know that Asmon even knows what the hell he's talking about.
And Asmongold is actually correct. It's not a free market when every single payment processor behaves the exact same way or has the same morality being brought to you as a customer.
I mean, that's a thing that's, I remember when the government was saying imposing a rating system, and we'll do it back in 92. Game companies have a system in place in less than a week. Yeah. You don't want the government involved. I've worked for the government for a long time. You do not want the government involved. Well, if the duopoly gets broken, one of the companies that gets made from them actually accepts transactions from the degen sites, then there is a chance, right? Yeah, agreed. If they broke it up that way and one of them does enjoy it from degen sites, then sure. I wonder how that would work because banks, and I mean, banks rule the world, but banks in general, it's a very, I mean, they have a monopoly right now. How do you break up the company to, like, how does that work for my bank, for my card, is what I kind of wonder. I'm thinking about it from a small steplum myself. I can agree with, I'll change my mind a little bit. I can agree with breaking up the monopolies. I just don't know how that would look and how it would affect the overall market.
And consumer, if you want to buy My Therapist is a Futanari 1, 2, and 3, I think you should be able to do so. Again, it is.
but you're not able to do so, right? These sites have their own thing. Like, is it Steam had to take them down, but what's the full look of it? Because right now I'm not getting a lot of information. Would be a few messy years for sure. Oh yeah, it'd be a hell of a mess trying to figure it all out, because all these smaller companies would start like vying for control, and it would probably end up with just 1 to 2, maybe 3 companies now.
Illegal
My guys are
material
doing
you're
nothing.
trying to purchase, and having giant monopolistic conglomerate corporations dictating to you what you can do with your money and where you can spend it is beyond another set of approach, because this becomes a massive slippery slope, as they then get to decide what is okay for you and not for you yourself as an actual adult and free human being. I think that is the major issue between all of this. Having companies dictate what you can and cannot purchase, depending upon their morality being placed onto you, is the bigger issue of all. In fact, I had to go and double check to make sure this rule was true, and it was. This is the actual website for onboarding on Steam. In fact, rule number 15 was recently added. The problem is when
hold on. Let's pause my colony for a minute and go back. Go back. All right. 15. Of course, it's my thing stuck down on it. Of course, my line is stuck on it.
Steam, in fact,
content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular, certain kinds of adult-only content. Yeah, I don't like that statement, but it looks, I mean, at this point, we're not even talking about card companies anymore. Now we're talking about the banks, internet service providers. I mean, how do you fight against this without taking down the entire thing? I guess maybe some internet service providers may be willing to, some banks. I don't know.
fact, rule number 15 was recently added. The problem is when I use the Wayback Machine, this was added recently. And we can see here that the most recent update for the Wayback Machine showing that rule 15 is not in effect is as early as April 14th of this very year, which means between April and July, something had to occur for Valve to literally, in my opinion, bend the knee towards payment.
Bend the knee.
Providing a new rule determining what they can dictate to choose what can and cannot be on Steam's storefront, a direct open platform. Many of the rumors going around, though, seem to be pointing towards an initiative called Collective Shout. And I'm going to say this right now, it seems to be a bunch of Karens screeching about things they don't like and trying to get things taken down. In fact, here's a direct statement on their main page. Since our launch in 2010, we have achieved many wins. Billboards objectifying women pulled down, clothing withdrawn from sale, violent games banned, Andrew Tate's pimping courses removed from Spotify, and an age verification trial underway to help protect kids from exposure to last year saw 30
Jesus Christ
wins. I'm gonna be real, guys. Y'all should change that number to at least 33 or 35. Trying to use the number 34 is not going to be a good way to put that on the internet. Just letting you guys know that right now. But things get to be a little bit more clear as Collective Shout also posted a recent open letter on July 11th that is directly posted against payment processors and Valve's Steam storefront.
Okay.
In fact, in the open letter, they directly point towards all the presidents and executive officers of those main actual payment processors like PayPal, Mastercard, Visa, PaySafe Limited, Discover, Japan Credit Bureau, which we're going to talk about again as well later on. And at the same time, providing direct email documentation and templates to go ahead and mass email and flag down those payment processors to go against what they feel is morally justified on those specific platforms and use that pressure to determine what you can and cannot purchase, even though it is in fact perfectly legal to do so. In fact,
it's not litigated to do so. Like, yes, it's legal right now, but if you look at like obscenity law in the United States and freedom of speech and different things like that, I'm not sure that this stuff has never been litigated, right? For probably a lot of, when we talk about Mercy and when it came out, there's probably a very good reason that they took down Mercy, right? Because they knew if it got litigated in the United States, that a lot of this stuff would probably become illegal, and then would end up with this same message already happening. So I feel like, I don't like Visa and MasterCard deciding for me. I don't like some women's group doing it, but I also don't want I don't think anyone wants them to go down and look at this stuff and say, okay, let's see if it passes obscenity laws, right? Do we want artists who make Mercy to go to jail for that? I don't know. Even though I think it's a horrible game, I don't know that it doesn't equal rapists.
On that website, they posted this paragraph saying this: our research has shown that many of these games would breach Australian classification.
No one gives a fuck about Australia.
Content found within the games, including the graphics and the developers' descriptions, are too distressing for us to include on our own website. One of our team members has done extensive research using her Steam account, and the content found including family members. This is the part that honestly truly pisses me off. It's the fact that a couple of screeching Karens over in Australia can truly get together and now decide what I can play on my Steam account depending upon what their morality is, because they want to pressure the payment processors and make them feel bad about it. This is just cancel culture 2.0.
God.
If they had their way, games like The Coffin of Andy and Layla.
We're going into the cancel culture, I guess. I mean, they're soccer moms who are afraid their kid is going to become a rapist by watching it, sure. But he's already going to talk about the Andy and Layla. I'm pretty sure that game still falls underneath it. Like, this is very specific towards like pornographic material, it seems. And there's a difference between The Coffin of Andy and Layla and Mercy, right?
Wouldn't be available for you to play at all. Even though that game can be incredibly disturbing, it really...
Debanking is a form of cancel culture. Sure, I agree. Okay, sure, I agree. I mean, there's not much I can say on that. I still think it's crying a little bit too much of it, though, and saying that they're going to take away the coffin of Andy and Lele is, I think, ridiculous. It's that pushing of, oh, look, they've done this thing that is they've taken away this thing that is degenerate, so now they'll go after everything. So, yeah, okay, I can agree with you.
It really goes to show that other people who do not understand what video games are as a true form of art should not have the ability to censor and push towards what other people can and cannot purchase because of their specific moralities. Really? Who the are you to tell me what I can and cannot buy? As long as it's totally legal and you're not ending up on the Epstein files, really, I don't see what the issue truly is. Yeah, some games aren't made for you. That's okay. They just released Donkey Kong Bonanza. Go play that instead. Don't push what you feel and what your ideal morals are onto other people, because that is not your responsibility. Take care of your own house before you start talking about what other people can and can't do with their money. And the fact that groups like Collective Shout even exist simply because they want to be the morality police on a bunch of things really goes to show that they truly do not understand the medium of video games, and they really just want to do everything directly, and that is control.
I don't think you have to understand the medium of video games to have a problem with rape porn. Like, I think that's going a little bit too far on the others. Like, okay. I don't even know how to put this or think of this. Like, it's you can have a problem with Mercy as a game and not have a problem with the uh, the coffin of Andy and Lele. Let me look at something. I got to pull something up here. Of U.S. So I mean, there is something that can, because a lot of this comes down to freedom of speech, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, being able to make the art you want to make. But even under uh, the U.S. law, porn does have some protections, right? But there are forms of that speech that no longer have it. I'm not a free speech absolutist. The only people who are pedos. That's the only way you can be a free speech absolutist. I think I'm very open with my speech in a lot of different things, more so than I guess most people. So let's take a look here. Wikipedia guy. Obscenity law deals with the regulations or suppression of what is considered an obscenity. An obscenity is an utterance or that strongly offends or prevalent morality of the time. Basically, that's how they put it. In the United States, discussions of obscenity typically related to defining what pornography is obscene. So not all, just what could be considered obscene. The issue of obscenity arise at the federal and state levels. We've had a lot of art, you could say, that has broken the limit. Like you can't walk around nude in public because it would be considered obscene. You can't, like, there was a restaurant, I think, that happened around there's what I'm looking for, the Miller test. There was a restaurant around that what they did inside of their restaurant, inside their private property, it was they put up a bunch of really obscene pornographic images, and that's, I think, where a lot of this stemmed from. So we use the Miller test. The Miller test was developed in 1973, Miller versus California. I believe that's the one. Serious. Oh, yeah. Obscenity. Where are we? Miller test. So it's got 3 principles: whether the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the work taken as a whole appeals to the prudent interest, whether the work depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct or extraordinary functions. I got to look up that word. I'm losing my mind. This dyslexia is kicking in. Ow. There it is. Sex. And then whether the work taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value, right? So when you're talking about something like Andy and Lele, you can add some kind of literary, artistic value, I think, to that. Where in something like Mercy, I don't know that the average person would find that not to be obscene. Would they find any of this of value, right? And the thing that comes down to it with the United States is it's going to be the average person. I'm on board with, I don't like that the credit card companies are coming in and the banks are coming in and making the decision for people. I don't think that it's going to be a case where you can't buy, like it's not going to suddenly become illegal unless the government steps in. If the government steps in to litigate this case, one of the things they're going to do is look at that and say, hey, is this illegal?
The content that you consume. And sadly, it's already begun because according to SteamDB on Blue Sky,
yes, sometimes the government can, because if you consume child porn, that is illegal. That is child porn has zero protections in the United States for freedom of speech. So what's happening now though is you can make simulators where you're raping people or other stuff like that. Does that deserve to still be considered freedom of speech, right? What is the line there?
Sky, Steam has added a new rule disallowing games that violate the rules and standards set forth by payment processors and card networks of internet network providers. At the same time, many Steam games were removed from the store. SteamDB continues by saying this is possibly related to PayPal because people in certain regions have not been able to use it or pay on Steam for the past 5 days. And this is incredibly concerning. Number one, that Valve had to acquiesce to these payment processors in order to go through and remove those games listed. So that means internet service providers, credit card companies, PayPal, and others can now choose and dictate and bully other people and companies and places on what is available.
Unfortunately, always has been. That's been a problem since forever. Payment processors control where the money goes, and if they say it's not going, then it's not going.
For you to purchase, even though I don't like any of those games at all, and I see them basically as just a bunch of memes, there are in fact people that do not see this as a good sign. Check this out. Starhawk on Blue Sky also said this: I'm sure most people can agree that those games are gross, but this is another case of payment processors dictating morality.
Dude, this always sounds like, every time I hear, like when Mercy came up and people were defending it and things like that, it always unfortunately sounds like a Shadman situation. Like all the freedom of speech people were all about, defending Shadman, even though he was doing like super degenerate stuff and things like that, drawing real live children. Even at the point when he was still drawing real live children, people were willing to go to bat for him and defend him. But but it's like, how is this going to end with all of this stuff being illegal anyway? Crypto was supposed to be a decentralized way to avoid these situations, and Steam used to accept Bitcoin, but it became too volatile. Yeah, well, that's the problem. Is it was the problem with making something decentralized is it's rife for abuse, and that's what started happening. And then after that, what happened? They centralized it. There's so many coins and things like that and rug pulls. So yeah, I understand why it's never become anything close to what, they wanted it to be. That's probably a little too close. Let's go back up here.
What about when PayPal decides it doesn't like violence, or Visa decides bank robbery?
This is what I'm talking about. This is like the Shadman defense. Like, well, if they do this now, they're just going to take everything away. If we can't draw children being assaulted, then they're going to take away bank robberies from GTA, and that's not going to be the case. When it comes to even these payment processors, they are still dependent on the people that use it. If they go too far, and they know it, if they go too far, the people will step in, and then the government will step in. And most corporations, all corporations, don't want the government to come in and start litigating it. But this is just scare tactics to say, oh, you have to help the fucking rape enthusiasts because Visa is going to take away GTA. It's absolute bullshit. You want to make a good argument. Kimoji is making a good argument on it being cancel culture, about them having good systems to control it. That's all stuff that we can argue with and talk about in the nuance of whether it should be on Steam or not. Some meme jurisdictions are too heavy-handed with violence and censorship. It's not too far-fetched. You can say that about stuff like Australia and things like that, but even in Australia, there's games that have been kicked off of Australia and still made it back on the platform, right? U.S. is very, very tight on its freedom of speech. We have very strong constitutional rights over here. So, I mean, you can argue for some of the other countries, maybe, but not here in the United States.
Reason GTA. Why do these companies get to decide what legal things we buy? Starhawk is absolutely 100% correct. If the product is legal, if everything is above board, other companies and other Karens of
Japan might have the most degenerate porn, but overly violent things are oddly a no-no. Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be country to country, and countries, I think, should dictate it. I do strive on the side of being more, you know, freedom of speech because I'm America, you know, fuck yeah. But, you know, a good example is they have tried this before. Government has tried to come in and limit GTA. GTA has been a thing that they've tried to litigate for years. The left has come after it, the right has come after it. It doesn't matter that the violence is in video games. It gets proven wrong over and over and over again. I still think it's a scare tactic, you know, at least to this extreme. Like if you see, I'm not saying that means you need to accept what Mastercard and Visa are doing, but this argument right here is not going to bring people on your side. It's just a scare tactic. It's just a matter of it's gonna go global or not. Yeah. Well, things can change globally. Like you look at the UK. If something happens in one of the big groups, you know, UK, US, China, not really China. They don't really affect censorship and stuff like that globally. But you look at like loot boxes and stuff like that with companies. UK passed laws saying, hey, you know, there's got to be all these restrictions around loot boxes. It didn't just affect the UK. It affected everyone. So the same thing can happen, you know, with Visa and Mastercard, considering they're so widespread. But I don't know. I just don't see it getting to that point without governments coming in and litigating it, which could be a lot worse.
Of collective shout, and other credit card merchants should not be telling me what I can and cannot purchase. This falls under direct slippery slope. And even though people can call out and say it's a fallacy, how many times have you seen the slippery slope happen right in front of your face consistently over and over again?
Hardly any, because most slippery slopes are using doomerism. And, you know, what's the biggest slippery slope? Maybe, you know, the Nazis and the Jews, I guess. But once the Nazis released the final solution, everybody else who was also doing eugenics was like, oh, wait a minute, that's a little bit too far, right? There's a line that people will go to before they go too far. It's not always a slippery slope leads to this. Like, how many slippery slopes can you name really happening, you know, now? I can't think of any that are happening now. I've seen giant leaps and stuff like that. You want to talk about like the US government and the Trump administration suddenly trying to, you know, deport everybody with a green card, everybody that's illegal, and, you know, things like that, setting up these big camps. That wasn't a slippery slope. The government made a big decision to do it, right? I guess if you wanted to say a slippery slope, you could say they're going to start going for everybody with a green card, and then they're going to start going after Americans. But you've already seen the pushback from things that are going on. So slippery slope is called a fallacy for a reason, because it really doesn't generally happen the way people say it's going to.
And like I said before, the craziest part is the fact that Valve
interstate speech suppression definitely wasn't a slippery slope. If you think about it, it used to be, and how it is now. Yeah. I mean, you know, small things happen and people call it a slippery slope, but then it's like something big happens and it completely changes it on its head. It doesn't, it's not usually a slippery slope. It's usually changes in culture, changes in laws, changes in things like that cause massive changes.
had to acquiesce to this directly. And I know some of the arguments being levied.
Oh, Alex, you're just a gooner. You're just a degen. That's the only reason why you want this to go away, because you just want to all over the place because you're gross.
No, that's not it at all. This can impact so many people on either side of whatever spectrum you're on. It can impact developers who want to make a new violent game. Remember Hatred, how much flack that game got, and how Karens wanted to have that game removed, even though
Yeah, but do you notice how it didn't, right? Because there is a difference in things that happen. Like, violence is pretty much normalized in most Western countries. I would say more so in, Eastern countries. But it's not, it's something that we fight for the free speech of. It's not just something that happens willingly. We have litigated violence over and over and over again, and our freedom of speech laws and beliefs and how we approach violence is very strong. We have not litigated internet porn and internet rape games. This is something new. This is not something that has been around, right? we came to the conclusion that and I don't even think porn sites like Pornhub will show rape fetish porn, but it's it's greatly, it's yeah, I don't even think they'll do it, but probably because of the line that it rides on freedom of speech, right? They don't want it to be litigated, because if they do, the government will start litigating it. Violence, very well litigated and proven that it's not going to cause the things that the argument says it's going to cause. Rape games and things like this, we just don't know. Do I think a rapist is going to be, or a person who plays a rape game is going to become a rapist? No. But I also think that people who fantasize about rape may start playing rape games, or someone who does rape may play rape games. Does that make a difference on if it should be sold or not? I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that. But comparing violent games to rape games is not the same thing. This is something we have talked about widely in gaming. The Hub don't show that sort of stuff anymore. They used to but they stopped a while back. Yeah. And I wonder what that is. I mean, porn has had its day in court talking about freedom of speech too, and it has won in a lot of cases for protections of free speech. So U.S. free speech is very open to a lot of things, but I don't think a credit card company is going to come in and tell Steam and other U.S. companies, other Western companies, that they have to not sell violent games. That just, you're instantly crossing the line. There's just no slow way to get up. There's no slippery slope that would get you past that line.
It really wasn't that good in the first place. This can impact people on either sides of the aisle, regardless of what's happening directly to them specifically, simply because whatever the payment processor deems to be righteous or moral on their ethical standard is what they'll choose to go forward and allow to be purchased, which means it could be a massive clusterfuck of content no longer being available for you to buy. And like Starhawk said previously, what if one day, let's say Visa, Mastercard, and PayPal decide that they don't like loot boxes in video games? Counter-Strike, Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, every other game, Wuthering Waves that provides this kind of content for you, gone, poof, off the network.
Good. Who's happy about loot boxes? That's a terrible argument. And loot boxes are kind of dying now because the government said that they were tired of it. The UK government did, and that affected the entire world. Loot boxes are very litigated now in the way they can be done. So they're very limited. That's why companies have moved on to other things. That's why it's more common to see skins and battle passes than it is to see loot boxes.
because they
He's talking about things that have already been litigated, right? This is already stuff that the government has gone through. The credit card companies aren't going to come in and make a moral decision about this. They are reacting to this Karen cult that did it, but this is not at all. None of these examples are anything but doomerism.
thought that their morality supersedes what you can do with the money that you're actually spending in the first place. That is the major issue of all of this. It's not about how much am I gonna goon today. It's more about how companies should not be dictating what I can and cannot buy. And it's not the first time they've done this. In fact, this happened last year, and the creator of Nier, Yoko Taro, said this: "It's a security hole that endangers democracy itself." The Nier creator speaks out against payment processors pursuing Japanese adult content platforms. In fact, this also happened again.
Okay. What was that? What were they pursuing? God damn it. I hate when people put stuff up on screen but don't really talk about it. Payment processors go after Japanese adult. See if I can find. Facing scrutiny in Japan for their actions regarding adult content. Niche gaming. Japanese government. Not really. No, that's the one I'm already on. Yamada Taro, members of the Japanese. Has investigated into a payment processor refusing to provide services to Japanese artists, particularly those involved in adult content. Okay, this is the article. Let's go through this. I mean, it's not the same one. Yeah, I guess this is the one he... Let me see.
It's a secure
Japanese adult content. All right. All right. Here we go. Let's make it bigger. Yamada Toro, a member of the Japanese National Diet, announced his intent to investigate the payment processors who are refusing to provide services to Japanese artists. For years, payment processors have been throwing their weight around to disenfranchise adult content creators based on nebulous standards regarding fictional content. Okay, this has got to be lolly, right? The decision of their payment processors has... what is this? That's just more stuff to his DL site, temporary blocks major Western payment processor. Okay. For years, the payment processors have been throwing their weight around. The decision has had a chilling effect on free speech by denying the ability of artists to receive payment for their commissions and products. Okay. According to Yamada Toro, the most recent victim of payment processor censorship has been game creators on Steam. Okay, who have had their revenue allegedly frozen by payment processors collaborating with Japanese banks. So is this just happening in Japan? Now it's banking censoring freedom of speech. Japanese banks ban adult games. Are banks censoring the freedom of expression? We have received multiple comments and questions like this. Specifically, we are aware of the following issues. When Japanese people or Japanese companies make profits on Steam, a world-famous game distribution platform operated by the American company Valve Corporation, if the game in question is for adult audiences, their remittance from abroad are rejected by Japanese banks, meaning they are unable to receive the profits. Is this today's? Is this the one that they're reading? Oh, this is from January. Okay. Okay. regardless of the actions of payment processors have caused problems for content creators on Patreon, DL site, DeviantArt, and more. Okay. Is this the issue? Like, is it not all over the place and it's just in Japan? Am I? I have another article. We're gonna finish his thing up, but is this just affecting Japan, or is this affecting the greater world?
Security hole that endangers democracy itself. The near creator speaks out against payment processors pursuing Japanese adult content platforms. In fact, this also happened again in 2024 with Denpasoft tweeting this out. Well, this is concerning. Received word a few minutes ago that we are forced to remove a large number of our titles from Denpasoft. Extremely disappointing, but considering what happened to DL.
What is Denpasoft? Old man doesn't know internet places. Denpasoft. Is this degenerate? Should I not bring this up? Yes. Oh, it's just fucking hentai and yeah, okay. Okay.
Site earlier this year, not entirely surprising. We'll have a write-up about this soon. And the write-up basically showed all the titles that had to be removed from Denpasoft's website from sale simply because those merchants did not want that availability of content for you as a customer and consumer.
He's not saying what content it is, so I'm assuming it's lolly. I guess I need to read deeper into this. I thought I was going to get more information out of it. But if this is just a problem with Visa versus Japan, then it sounds like Japan is starting to litigate it, and this isn't even the scary issue that they're all throwing around it to be, right? These Japanese companies can't put their games on Steam because Japanese banks won't do it, or is it Visa and Mastercard?
In fact, it also happened earlier again this year with Niche Gamer pointing out how payment processors are also forcing Japanese retailers to remove adult games indefinitely from their stores. And it also happened as well.
Okay, he keeps pointing this out like they're different issues, but it seems like it's the same issue that's been growing. I thought this was something that just recently happened, but it looks like it's been happening since the beginning of this year.
Developers on Steam, as adult game devs in Japan can't receive revenue from Steam as Japanese banks reportedly make the comprehensive decision, quote unquote, to block transfers. And like I said, I get it. I don't like those games either, but I can simply go ahead and choose to just ignore them on my Steam store page. There's in fact a setting to do so, so you don't even have to know they even exist. And that's the problem with all of this. Steam has already given you, the consumer and customer, the ability to ignore all of these games and all of these things that you don't want to see. You can even drill down to the kind of genre you don't even want to look at as well. So it
Okay, I have to figure out this. Okay, Valve confirms credit card companies. Like, is this widespread or is this just in particular areas? It's Mastercard's world. We just live in it. That's my understanding based on recent communique from Valve to PC Gamer, which confirms that, yep, the company sure did recently remove a whole spat of adult games from its storefront because it made payment processors upset. We have recently been notified, or we were recently notified that certain games on Steam may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processor and their related card network banks. As a result, we are retiring those games from being sold on the Steam store. Valve's reaching out to devs impacted by the change and issuing apt credits should they have another game they'd like to distribute on Steam in the future. Just so long as those games get the seal of approval from Valve's payment processors. To be fair to the house that Gabe Newell built, I don't think he has much of a choice. Valve explicitly said that it was removing the offending games because loss of payment methods would prevent customers from being able to purchase other titles and game content on Steam. It seems quite clear to me that those kind of statements that Valve chafing a little under payment processors tyranny. But I suspect even Steam can't really go toe to toe with the likes of Visa and Mastercard. Valve didn't say which games specifically have been yoinked off Steam as results of the credit card companies throw their weight around, but I don't think it's the proprietor I don't think it takes Peria to put this one together. As we noted in the original piece on Steam's new rule forbidding upset its payment processors, the appearance of this new regulation on Steam's documentation coincides with the sudden disappearance of a bunch of adult games and theme of keeping it in the family. Is that what they said? There are some games that still have the focus on Steam storefront, so I suppose it can't say for certain that it's what raised processors' hackles, but I think it's a safe bet anyway. One thing we can say for certain, the simultaneous delisting of Chinese Phoenix Wright X games from Steam apparently had nothing to do with this new rule. Trials of Innocence disappeared from Steam at the same time as the adult stuff got cold, leading some to theorize that it had been accidentally caught up in the overzealous net. But the devs have now confirmed that the game has been temporarily taken down to a DMCA claim. Credit card processors are incredibly touchy about the adult content online. Not only is it a magnet for scams and chargebacks, but they're still reeling from the time a few years ago when popular adult site Pornhub was found to be hosting content featuring underage and non-consenting performers. Yeah, I remember that. I find it amusing this whole situation's managed to get airbagged side and Grum's side to agree on something for once. That's funny to hear. That is hilarious. Processors served their links to the company, which continues to this day. Of course, Steam doesn't allow explicit content featuring real people on its service. All adult content on its platform, I don't care that it's the animation argument is null and void to me. All the adult content on the platform is animated one or another, and yet apparently payment processors are jitty even about that. Like, okay, it feels like an incredibly bad precedent to set if you want to decide what can and can't buy on Steam. It sure as hell isn't Mastercard. It's still not telling me. Okay, that's the Pornhub one. I don't give a fuck about the Pornhub one. This is the one I want. Let's go here. Steam's got a new rule that puts kibosh on certain kinds of adult content. Devs are biting their nails over a new rule that prohibits, in painful, vague terms, certain kinds of content on its platforms. The new rule seemingly introduces incredibly recently and definitely introduced since the Wayback Machine's last day. Okay, so he's just reading from this. Good job, Alex. Content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processor and providers. In other words, keep Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal happy or sling your hook. How do you do that exactly? Valve doesn't say. Not only noting that the particular care should be taken, certain kinds of adult content only. Yeah, I agree. That's vague. Okay, I'm gonna have to do more research into this because I'm in agreement that I don't want the card companies to come in and decide. That's them walking back. Seems that the incest might be one of the themes to fall under the valves. Let me just keep reading through here. SteamDB on Blue Sky. The new rules coincide with a sudden removal of a significant number of incest-themed games from the Steam forum front. Anyone who had any number of interactive sex or sex games on their website or wish list should have bought them sooner. I've reached out to the dev behind some of those games to ask if they could have any. It would seem that the incest might be one of the themes. Sex series. Could it be they just slipped some sort of automated removal net, or was this disappearance? Without clarification, Valve, that goes beyond a couple of sentences that have chucked into the Steamworks onboarding goes. It's tough to say. What's less hard to parse is the fear. Sorry, I'm just kind of getting through it to try and find some. Back when Steam is in the kind of turmoil that struck OnlyFans way back in 2001, when the site almost exclusively associated in people's minds with sex workers who used to the living with pressure of the banks. So it seems it does not want Steam users to suddenly find themselves unable to buy games. Credit card companies. I wonder if this is all started from Japanese banks. Like, I'm starting to think it's not caused by this Karen group, because I don't think this Karen group would have gotten enough focus. But saying that there were several Japanese banks that went through it. Temporary. April 3rd. It was worthless. Ooh, goodness. All right, let's finish this out.
Makes no sense, while everybody else should have direct moral authority over you as a customer and consumer of what you can and cannot play. And the biggest fear of all of this isn't the fact that Maguni games are gone, it's the fact that where is going to be the line for them. And the real problem is
Okay, listen, I can come in agreement we should find where the line is going to be, but I'm really tired of all this fucking bullshit doomerism. It is not the same. It is not going to be a situation where it comes down to this slippery slope fallacy is bullshit. Let's talk about actual issues with it. Credit card companies and advertising companies have too much of the chokehold on the internet now. I mean, that I agree with, but you've seen, I mean, even in the article we just read about, that they really don't, because they tried to do it to OnlyFans and they got their pee-pee slapped for it. So yes, they have the potential for a lot of power, but they still have to tightrope around what they want to do. I'm sure this will end up, now that it's made it to Western society by the look of it, that it's going to be probably more litigated. This might get back to government intervention, which, again, I don't really like, and I don't think these people will like much either.
isn't the fact that they're going after those games. It's
I can agree with splitting up a monopoly. I'm all about splitting up some monopolies.
the fact that we do not know where the morality line ends for these companies and corporations. Places like Collective Shout, they can then go ahead and choose to go through and go after games like Grand Theft Auto. Remember that entire hot coffee debacle we had back in the early 2000s? Everybody freaking out about that thing.
Yeah, I remember when we stomped that out, and Grand Theft Auto has continued to make games till this day.
Compared to what games are like today, it's
Like I said, it's you're just trying to scare me into believing this thing is, and I can be on your side. Yeah, you know, there are things in here with reading it that I can be on your side and change my mind about. But stop fucking doomerisming it. Stop telling me it's a slippery slope that they're about to take away all of my guns.
almost like we're going back in reverse, where there's too much control from corporations and companies trying to dictate what you can and cannot do with your money that you literally give them, that you're saying, look, I have your debit card. I have your credit card. I pay you. If you're going to go ahead and tell me what I can and cannot buy, I shouldn't be paying it out of my own pocket, period, point blank. But that's not how they want it to work. They want to have full control and autonomy of.
Yeah, like this isn't. I just don't see this being a moral. Like, there's not a guy at Mastercard going, you know what I really hate? I really hate rape games. And so that's what I want to just cut off today. No, it's probably a combination of stuff. It sounds like, from the little bit that I've read, and I'll read more and on, maybe tomorrow kind of bring up what I found, that some Japanese banking companies have started making a fuss about the violent games. It's definitely a moral, cultural thing. Well, yes, there is something to it, but it's not Visa doing that. Visa only gives a shit about the fucking money coming in and the money that they're making off of these companies. What will catch them off guard is when a moral or cultural group steps in to cause problems, like that Karen group, or maybe like the Japanese banks that seem to be involved in all of this as well. If Japanese banks start going to Visa and Microsoft and say, hey, we don't want these processed anymore, and that happens, we were just talking about this earlier, if a major market starts doing that, which, you could argue that the Japanese market isn't as large as some of the others, but it starts to change everywhere. So for my sounding, and this is kind of just from the little tidbits that I can see, so it's not all there, Japanese banking industry decided they didn't want to process any of this fucking degenerate shit. They went and complained to Microsoft, or not Microsoft, they went and complained to credit card processors about it. Credit card processors changed the rules, and they're not going to go to Steam and say, hey, you can only change this in one market. It's always going to be, this is our new rule, you have to follow it. And it's affected the whole world, which is probably going to come back and bite them in the ass.
Of what you can buy, what you can consume, what you can see, what you can play. And that's where the big issue comes in all of this. And that's where I have a massive issue overall. The morality of a company and corporation should not be dictated on you as a customer and consumer. And if you're watching this content, more than likely you are a grown-ass old man watching this and realizing that, hey, they shouldn't be telling me what I can and cannot do with my money. It's literally my money. And if it's spent in a legal manner on legal products, there really isn't a factor at all on why they should be involving themselves with what I want to play and what I want to do. I think that is the massive issue with all of this. And these companies and corporations are going to try and push the line even further to dictate what you can and can't do.
It's that line there. It's like he has me on the idea of like, yes, these companies are do something wrong, and then he tells me this statement.
Do with your money. Going to try is the massive issue with all of this. And these companies and corporations are going to try and push the line even further to dictate what you can and can't do with your money.
Like the only reason Visa or Mastercard does anything is because they get kickback on something and they think they're going to lose money for it. They're not more like Visa and Mastercard are not moral frogging. I'm sorry, they're not. they're not, there's not some Bible thumper at Microsoft or at Mastercard that's deciding what should or shouldn't be done. They're basing it off of the general population and kind of the same thing that the government does. What is the average consumer and things like that going to consider when looking at this?
And that is the scariest part of all of this. And that's why I'm making this video. It's not because I'm a gooner. Yes, I totally am. I'm not going to lie about that. Who doesn't love a good Futanari 3D animation? Tell you what, it's because of the fact that these companies should not be telling you what you can and cannot do with the money that you've earned on a legal space, on a legal platform, buying legal products. And that is going to be the line that they're trying to cross. And anyone being in support of this is going to learn the hard way that these rules can also come for you as well. Because when the content that you like is now put under the microscope and they deem it unnecessary for what you want to watch and what you want to play, that's when you'll realize, oh shit, fuck, I should have been there from the beginning. If you want to.
Yeah, but the content I want to, again, like this, it's going to go back to where we can only have Mario 3D side scrollers. The average person thing falls apart when you cross countries. Different cultures have different tolerances to taboo topics. Well, yeah, I agree with that. And that's what I believe is happening here is the taboos of Japan and Japan's banking system have affected the rest of the world. I have to look more into it, but the last 3 of those articles were about Japanese banks pressuring credit card companies. So There's types of porn on Japan that you can buy freely, but on Australia it gets you arrested. Right, right. There's different laws and different things for different items like that. I'm not disagreeing there, but in the Visa and Mastercard's mind, they're trying to look at it globally as a whole, and for the most part, they can't. They can. They're not going to, in the start of it, only doing it in Japan, right? They'll just make a blanket statement like they have. Like I said, I could be completely wrong about this. I'm not for Mastercard or any of these payment processor companies, right? I agree they have too much power. I don't agree with the way that they're doing this particular project. I just don't like this doomerism around it, right? We can have an actual conversation without telling me that my violent video games are going to go away when that's clearly never going to be the case.
Want to see more of this kind of content, more PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, context in the gaming industry.
So he's pretty much done there. Like I said, I'm going to have to look up some more. I'm going to have to do some more research on what's going on with that.
Recently, I gotta go to anime.
Okay, thank you. Someone else sent this other. So like I said, yes, I can come to the conclusion after watching that and reading some of those articles that we don't want credit card companies to be doing this. What I need to know is, like, where did this stem from? Where did it stem from? What's causing it? Is it just, it didn't just happen out of nowhere. Visa and MasterCard just didn't wake up one day and say, you know what? I'm taking down all those rape gangs. And I really don't believe that a small little group got enough attention that it made Visa change their mind. That just doesn't shake with me, It worked for Mercy because of just how, bad that game was. But Lolly and stuff like that has been a thing for a while. Oh, they're coming for me. Japanese banks go after. Let's see if I can find something. Saying huh? Funny thing is that Mercy didn't even get removed. The dev pulled it. Oh yeah. So that's right. We don't know if Steam would have taken it down. You're right. I completely forgot about it. They removed it. Personally, I think for them that was a good move, because you don't want someone else coming in and saying, you don't want that loud company to get the government involved, or definitely not the U.S. government. Go after payment processors for porn. Okay, here we go. Banks in Japan, it would have gotten removed because of how many eyes were on it. Yeah, well, I mean, yes. Whether it happened one way or the other. Jesus Christ. Really? Really, PC Gamer? Thanks. So this is back in January. Income. I'm sure I don't have to tell you you've been even toggled on Steam sexual content, whether out of curiosity or otherwise is your business, but there's a lot of porn on Steam. You know what? I want to look at something with that too. Child. Interface library. Manage my Steam family. See, and here's my issue as I'm going through Steam. Deus's account. Like, it's just a toggle. How mature topics may not be appropriate for all audiences. And, you know, to push back against Booba jump scare. Yeah, Booba jump scare. So here's my argument with the you can toggle it off idea is from a parent's perspective on that. It's just a toggle. I'm not seeing any actual parental controls that I can put a password behind to keep my child from toggling it on or off. And you're not going to tell me that my kid can't go find, you know, that stuff if they wanted to. It's yes, it's a toggle. You can turn it off. It may come off that way, but there's literally nothing else to stop my kid from hitting that button and going in it other than it's hidden in the Steam settings. And if anyone knows kids will find their way into stuff they don't need to get into. So I do have a problem there. I would feel better and more on Steam side in the type of content that's on there, because let me get this straight. When I'm talking about my views of not wanting the stuff on Steam, that's not that I want payment card processors to be on it. It's that it needs to have Steam has family. Yeah, I can add a family member to it, but it's not giving me any parental controls. My kids have an account that has the parental, that's in the Steam family, but that's so they can play off of my games. It doesn't have actual parental controls where I can put in a password or any other things like that. So that's what I'm talking about. Steam has family view. If I'm wrong, show me. But I was doing my look there and I didn't see anything that was easily available for me to start setting stuff and passwords. So I'm going to look at this. At the time of writing, 122,000 games on Steam, almost 6,000 are marked for adult-only content. At the time of roughly, huh? Let me send on Discord. Okay, yeah, send it to me so I can find it. Woke game review, really? Steam family support. Visit the website. Let me make sure it doesn't pop up my Steam. There we go. Creating a family, sharing parental controls, manage access and monitor activity. Okay. Family management. Invite a member, children. The new content should add as a child or adult. Any adult family member can manage invites on the account. Entry, recovering. Okay. Actually, we can go up in here. This isn't going to be anything. Yeah, I have families set up on mine. I have one account that my kids can use from. Up to 6 family members. Steam family members can be managed via Steam client, mobile device, or web browser. Access to all games owned by the family member. Manage game access and monitor from anywhere. 2 roles. Okay, so let's go on to Steam. Family management. You have not yet. What? I have set up their community profile. Requests, playtime. Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying on how they do it now. You have to set up a separate account which I have a child account set up for mine, even though it says it's offline. And then they can play games and stuff like that on there. So yeah, I can definitely say that they have it. It's still, I think, flimsy in comparison, because I shouldn't have to make a whole new account to do it, right? I should be able to set up my account with passwords into certain things so that it doesn't show up. This isn't a bad system. It's just for the average, like someone like me who knows what to look for and how to do this. I can get this set up easily. But for the average parent, they're just looking for something that they can put a PIN code into, right? So this one, say I was not a gamer parent, I would have to set up my own account. The family thing is more for so everyone can share their games instead of having a fragmented library. True. It definitely can be improved. Yeah. What my thing is like I'm a gamer, so I could definitely, have this set up so that my kids can't find those games. I play those games with them. If it's, my wife who doesn't play games and she sets up a Steam account for my son, there's nothing in these managements besides a toggle. Here, I'll show you on here. That would stop my son from untoggling it, right? She wouldn't know to make her own account to buy the games on and then to do it. Let's see if I can show. Actually, I don't want to show it because it does have information on there. But either way, like if there's nothing to stop it on the main account, that's where I think I agree with. Yes, it has parental controls if you want to control it through the kid, but it doesn't have a one account parental controls where I have to come in and do like a pin or a passcode. Like my daughter's phone is set up right now so that she can't do anything without coming to me first, pretty much, right? She can't add contacts at random. She can't download apps. Some apps aren't even going to show up for her. That's what I mean about like good parental controls on there. You shouldn't be able to buy anything on my account without it. It needs some preemptive parenting for sure. iPhone generation ruined the whole concept of setting limits. Yeah, agreed. So, I mean, it was a new thing too. Like my parents didn't understand any of this stuff when I was getting into gaming. They didn't know what Grand Theft Auto was. It was just GTA. Sure, get it for your kid. I'm a little bit more in the know on those things, and being a little bit terminally online happens. But so looking at this, it looks like the Japanese government's getting involved. 6,000 of them are marked as adult only, and that's about 1 in 20. Nearly half of those are tagged as hentai. Yesterday, this is the Yamada guy. I had to do some mental gymnastics to get my mom to buy the games with barely dressed women on the cover. Yeah, I get it. I could say I was never brave enough to ask for Dead or Alive Ultimate Volleyball. But usually it was easy enough to do stuff. And then once I had my own money, she wasn't even really looking at what I bought. According to machine translations, so this is what it seems like, is this group right here, Japan's Financial Services Agency and the Ministry of Economic Trade and Industry have confirmed the reports. Maybe not these groups, have confirmed reports and interviews the FSA has conducted with Japanese banks, preventing the transfer of Steam revenue. The banks said the decision was a comprehensive judgment based on Japan's act to prevent, on the prevention and transfer of criminal proceedings and its Foreign Exchange Foreign Trade Act, which aims to verify and regulate international commerce that could be used to fund illegal activity. Okay, that's interesting. In a YouTube broadcast discussing the issue, Yamada questioned the relevance of those acts, as the Steam transactions are related to legitimate sales. The issue, Yamada said, is that Japanese law currently doesn't have procedures in place to address the nuances of international Steam sales, which leaves Japanese banks in a position to apply their own restrictions that raise concerns about freedom of speech in the media procedure. You see how this isn't like, it's not, I hate it because it sounds like I'm going to bat for freedom of for these companies, but it sounds like Japanese law is what changed the game. But mom did her due diligence and would at least check the cover rating, and when it was M, I was just cooked. See, my mother was the complete opposite. Like she never got into any of the computer stuff, even until she just, it wasn't for her. So anything to deal with that, she really didn't understand. Like she could do the movies and stuff like that and understand like, okay, yeah, my son doesn't need to watch this movie because of sex scenes or things like that. But when it came to video games, she just had no understanding. So she was just pretty much going off of my consensus and what I told her. So she was very, rarely looking into it. So it sounds like in January, Japanese law changed, and it's been going back and forth. As Automated reports last year, Yamato described his Profile X as freedom of expression, has previously expressed concerns of censorship when Visa abruptly halted credit card payments to Japanese platforms hosting adult content to protect the Visa brand. Okay, so there's Visa saying that they did it. So it looks like it is a over adjustment to Japanese law. These concerns echo ongoing disputes in the U.S. over restrictions on adult content, in which activists and organizations such as the ACL, yeah, we fucking hate them, have argued that the vague and ambiguous policy requirements of companies like Mastercard and Visa, alongside growing state efforts to regulate access to pornography, threaten the livelihood of free speech rights of sex workers and adult content creators. So this is all falling into line. So it doesn't sound like it is Visa or MasterCard trying to moral frog us. Alex is just absolutely fucking wrong there. It looks like Visa and MasterCard are trying to put themselves in a position where they don't lose money because of all the laws that have been changing. Sounds like over a lot of the world. The U.S. has been fighting, they've been making these porn laws that I don't agree with. Even here in my state, it's that way, which is funny because you can, I hate to tell like the states and these countries, like you're not going to be able to litigate these laws when it comes to like porn, because there's so many sites out there that'll just start doing what Pornhub did. Like Pornhub's going to have to follow it because they're a major company, but that just means like it was before, it's going to spread to just a bunch of other sites versus where everything had pretty much pulled down to Pornhub where you could control it, right? If everyone was watching Pornhub, when they had underage girls on there, it got litigated and it got taken care of. Now, any degenerate website in the world is going to, any country in the world that has these degenerate sites can set up any kind of stuff for people to find. It's going to be real hard going forward. Of course, pedo stuff they look for. We love to goon, yeah. So it's just this, like this we can talk about, all right? Hey, this isn't necessarily MasterCard and stuff like that doing. It's government regulation that's causing these things to happen. So instead of yelling at MasterCard and Visa, we need to be going to our government people and saying, hey, why are we passing these laws that are causing problems in this area? Why can't, if you want to protect the rape gang, then you need to be going for the right targets. And Visa and MasterCard are just not the right targets because they are not going to, as they said, leave their brand unprotected. Hey, what's going on, Nasmer? So, and this is like it's the same thing when you're listening to like Savvy talk about it, or even Alex. Alex was just like they they have no understanding of what's actually happening here, so they're just going with the normal talking points. You even say that they did it this time and this time and this time. Well, no, all of these are pretty much the same instance. Just woke up at 4 a.m. Oof, that's early. I used to wake up that early, and then I retired. So, well, you've woken up to this. So, I honestly don't trust any company to have a nuance to know the difference between goon games and rape sims. You're right. I absolutely agree on that side. But that's not what they're trying to do. They're just trying to, and that actually is what we just read proves your point, is they can't. So what they're just going to do is they're going to be as safe as possible. Like the Japanese government and the American governments are drawing these lines, but the credit card companies can't see where these lines are. So they're going to the extremes to protect their company and not get raped in court by multiple, government agencies. It sounds like it's a lot of we're in the what's it called? Like the rough period. Like the two major governments, the US and Japan, have made very large governmental changes to the porn industry in general. Yeah, the dark ages. The porn industry in general, and the credit card companies and the banks and all of that are trying to figure out where that law is, and they're overcorrecting. So I don't think you shouldn't fight for it. Like I said, I don't think that they should be making these sweeping decisions. Alex is wrong, though. It's not them moral frogging. It's them They're them trying to prepare for government intervention. I still, to this day, will say that these games don't need to necessarily be on Steam. I'm a prude. Call me a prude all you want. There can be a porn platform similar to Pornhub or something like that, which I think they need to remove a lot of these laws on Pornhub. I don't think they should stick. I think if it gets sent up, because right now I think it's just state level in the United States, right? Texas and Florida, I know, are some. What states? Yeah. The states were, quite a few states. So the states that were banning porn recently, it's not banning it, they're making it age verification, which, might as well be banning it because I wouldn't put my stuff on it. Virginia, Louisiana, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, Texas, Mississippi, Carolina, Idaho, Utah, Missouri, Arkansas, and Virginia. These states have enacted laws. So it's not the U.S. as a whole, but it's quite a few states. So I wonder how that's going to change if it goes federal, because this is a free speech argument, right? That should you be allowed to put a restriction, age verification on Pornhub, which essentially does block some free speech. It's interesting. It's actually a really interesting subject that I'm going to read a lot more about, figuring out how these Japanese banks are working and things like that, because I think the pieces are starting to come together. But anyway, enough of me rambling on about degenerates. I saw someone who posted this one in there. Where is it? Doot. Thank you, Kamoji, for sending me the that Steam stuff too. I would tag him, but Smash JT blocked me and made fun of him. Oh, what's this? Oh, you're not gonna watch that there. Oh, is this just a thread of people saying why they were blocked? What the fuck? All right. Anyway, I saw this, and I mean, just the front portion right there makes me think this should be fun. It's called "When Censoring Waifus Goes Horribly Wrong for the Government." So I figured this was topical. We're kind of on the subject of censorship, and this would fit right in with the segment we're currently talking about. So let's see what happens when it goes wrong.
Gacha gamers. We are the most deranged, delusional, degenerate group of anime fans you will ever see. With a crippling gambling addiction we will justify for the thighs. In fact, for the justice of seeing cute anime girls, gacha gamers in Korea literally exposed and took down a corrupt government agency, ending in multiple department heads stepping down, criminal charges being pressed,
That's interesting. Okay.
and an entire government branch being overhauled. All because gacha gamers wanted to see their cute and funny girls. Blue Archive, a Korean gacha
I mean, South Korea is known for having a very, very corrupt government. I mean, one of their presidents, I believe, was under the influence of a cult. So yeah, it's not the first time I feel like a government agency in Japan or in North Korea or South Korea, I'll get it right sometime, got taken down.
gacha game known for its gorgeous art style, fantastic music, and base developers.
그 밖에도 올해는 아루 사장님 같은 여친이 생겼으면 좋겠어.
The general premise of the game is that you are the sensei, or teacher of these female students, many of whom have been taken advantage of or harmed by corrupt adults in the world, and you, as their teacher, step up to protect them as the responsible adult. Yes, responsible. In the past few years,
Jesus fucking
countries such as
Christ.
China, Japan, and Korea have had the appearance of small groups of what internet people call extreme feminists. Like the kind that would hate any kind of sexualization of girls, fictional or not, and go on Twitter rampages
Okay.
online.
Is it just the feminists, though, that have a problem with cute and funny characters?
Yeah, that type. To nobody's surprise, Blue Archive, with this kind of premise, would be one of the targets of criticism. Despite technically being a Korean game, Blue Archive first released in Japan in February 2021, and it was fine. I mean, let's be honest, Japan's had worse. A little cunny is nothing over there. A global version
This guy knows what cunny means, right?
was soon announced in August 2021, and people who saw the trailers and Japanese gameplay were hyped, with over 1 million pre-registrations before the game's release. This was monumental, as even developers only had in-game rewards for up to 250k registrations, so it was probably far above their expectations. Anyway, things looked bright as 2 months later in October, an interview with program director Yong-ha Kim was published on the official Blue Archive YouTube channel. In this interview, he specifically stated that we're fully aware about the areas of concerns expressed by users. The illustrations are of the utmost importance. Some people seem worried that the illustrations in the game may be altered, and some illustrations have been shared in advance on Twitter. We ourselves have not made any changes to the illustrations at this point, and we don't plan on doing that in the future either. A very promising line for those who want to play the authentic game. This line would come to bite them in the ass very soon. The global version of the game released in most parts of the world in November 2021, just 1 month later, and what do you know? A bunch of censorship. censorship. A bunch meaning this one image was zoomed in on. I couldn't find anything else they censored, but please correct me in the comments if I missed any. Amongst the global servers, this was notably not censored in Korean, as in if the game detected that you were playing on a Korean IP address. But the rest of the world was not exactly happy. There was, of course, the general censorship bad arguments being thrown around, but more than anything, it was the fact that Nexon, the company, straight up lied. Just 1 month ago, they said they had no plans for censorship, and now this? It felt like a betrayal, and many players felt like they couldn't trust the company anymore. Blue Archive Global Edition got review bombed on both the Apple Store and Google Play, forcing Yong-ha Kim, the person who did the interview, to give a statement. He claimed that they had no choice due to external requests because of the different circumstances of different regions. He claims they will try to preserve the original intentions, but certain changes will happen in future updates notifications. There were two things that pissed people off. One, surely there was no way they hadn't already known about these regional restrictions or circumstances 1 month.
Yeah, probably.
He still, in their interview, said they don't plan to censor anything.
This game also had a problem where it got busted off of Steam, right? Oh no, it wasn't busted off of Steam. I watched something where it was talking about this game abusing some of Steam's TOS by asking for people to drop a review. It was delayed on Steam. Well, no, I saw something where it was on Steam and it had asked people to drop reviews and you would get an in-game reward. It was Bellier that was talking about it. If you and how it was kind of like, I don't want to say dangerous, but it was like getting away with stuff. The review thing was probably a misunderstanding. Maybe. I don't know. Let's keep going though.
Some thought this smelled bullshit, but some people gave them the benefit of the doubt, since there wasn't a lot of censorship, so it could have been a last-second decision, who knows. The second more concerning part was changes in future updates, which basically was a signal that the global version was probably getting more censorship in the future, leaving fans very unhappy. However, since the Japanese and Korean versions were uncensored, most of the unhappy people consisted of those from the West, and China eventually, but they have their whole own system and stuff. In other words, what could they really do other than bitch online? Despite the backlash, the game proceeded to run as usual in the next year, until a sudden change in Korea in October 2022 caused an uprising. In most countries, we have some sort of age rating system for games to determine above what age they are appropriate for. Some you may know are ESRB in America, PEGI in Europe, and CERO in Japan. These are normally independent or semi-private entities, but in Korea, they have the Gaming Rating and Administration Committee, or GRAC for short, which is run by the government. In other words, the government basically has legal authority to decide what they want to do with games. They deem your game inappropriate, M rating it is. Your game is offensive, boom, get banned. They can just do that. And in October 2022, they pulled the trigger. Blue Archive was suddenly re-reviewed, most likely due to the sexual depiction of some characters from online communities, or Twitter ragers, I would guess. Even though the game hadn't had any recent big updates or changes, GRAC suddenly decided that Blue Archive, alongside FGO, was actually 18+ rather than the original 15+. This pissed the Korean fans off. This rating meant that technically, teens who were enjoying the game would no longer be able to play, cutting off a portion of the game's fan base. But what's worse is how advertising for the game would become much more limited, as you can't exactly advertise 18+ products everywhere. What made everyone extra mad was how targeted this move felt. Korean weebs felt that GRAC was deliberately targeting anime-styled games to
It's so hard for me to get behind lolly stuff. Like I want to say more, but I just, it's hard to defend.
censored them for baseless reasons. The official reason given for an 18+ rating was nudity-related content, which is kinda BS because the game doesn't have explicit nudity, and normally it would take a lot more, such as full-on intercourse, to trigger an 18+ rating. Nexon, the company...
Okay, that is a little bit, I mean, the game itself is safe and kosher. Yeah, I mean, they just said that, and I was like, if it doesn't have any, like, intercourse or anything like that, then why is it getting an 18+ rating? Okay, all right. I might be on the lolly side here.
Behind the game, then decided for a compromise solution. They would have two versions of Blue Archive. The original uncensored one, which would be 18+, and a censored version that would say 15+. Although I kind of sympathize with the company at this stage, fans were still angry as it felt like the company was surrendering and the government was just doing what it wanted to. In response to this, Blue Archive fans, enraged, started a National Assembly e-petition demanding abolition of Korea's mandatory game pre-review system, which quickly garnered over 39k signatures. However, you know that online petitions, change.org, don't normally do anything, and Korean gamers took this to heart. A lawmaker from the Korean Democratic Party, Lee Sang-hyun, who is presumably also a Blue Archive player, called for a petition in protest, demanding a public audit of the GRAC's work and use of resources. The difference this time, though, was that this wasn't just some online petition to sign. People supporting it would have to show up at a government building in person to essentially file a complaint. And for the first time in their lives, gamers left their houses to protect the integrity of their waifus. Over 5,400 Koreans amassed to formally file a complaint against the GRAC department. Some
5 million? Is that what he said? Holy shit. I mean, gambling addicts do be gambling. I've tried, so one gacha game came out that I thought, you know, all right, I might give this a try. And it was recently, and it had a Final Fantasy Tactics feel to it, that kind of gameplay and things like that. But I can't get by the gacha mechanics. It's so, like, it just irritates me to the point that I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to sit here and wait for something when I can go play a game and get the satisfaction I want out of it.
Even traveling across cities to do so, this was enough to trigger a Board of Audit investigation by the government, or more specifically, Korea's Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism. Lawmaker Lee was under this department, and he must have already known something, as he condemned GRAC as
You play gacha for characters and the thrill of gambling. Yeah, and I just don't get that thrill, luckily, from gambling. Gameplay is secondary. Yeah, I noticed. The gameplay in that game got very repetitive very quick, and I was like, well, that's what it is.
Festering and rotting from within. He was also the one overseeing the audit, and boy did he hit a bullseye. What they found was astounding. The investigation was done in mid-2023, with the audit report released.
Or simping for the characters, that's one reason to play too. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that a lot of them have the character designs that they have, and it's not just because it's the Asian artwork.
In June 2023, it was found that approximately 700 million won, or about 500k USD of taxpayer money, was unaccounted for. Yup, embezzled taxpayer money.
Oh, okay.
Bitcoin mining. In some of their projects, it was also found that even though payments were made, the contracted work was never actually done, and false documentation was submitted to justify the spendings, meaning in reality, even more money mysteriously disappeared. All of these findings were enough for the
Gotta love me some government fraud.
ministry to call this a structural misconduct, and an intentional one at that. The fallout was swift. Not even a month later, it was announced that the entire GRAC department would be getting a full rehaul.
Oh no,
Three of
okay.
the department heads abruptly resigned amongst the incident. Although, let's be honest, we know why. The Korean government stated that it would replace GRAC's leadership, press criminal charges against those responsible, and attempt to recover the missing funds. restrictions. Meanwhile, on the Blue Archive side, GRAC continued to insist that despite all of this, their 18+ rating given to the game was fair and that they had received many citizen complaints.
Oh.
By that time, the entire agency's reputation was below dirt water. And eventually, for the first time in history, gamers won and the decision got reversed.
So gamers didn't win because because they were necessarily right. Like the company still felt, or the organization still felt like it needed the rating. They won because the company was so corrupt that it just got disbanded.
Blue Archive 15+ rating it had in the beginning in Korea. On the global side of things, Nixon decided to stick with the 2-version solution, an uncensored and censored version, where the specific age limitations depends on the country. But either way, people could just play uncensored if they wanted to, and most people were okay with it. And then there's Japan. They never dealt with any censorship problems. If anything, Blue Archive is being plastered all over billboards in the street. And on my Japanese app store, the game is still 12+. Japan really is just Japan, huh? The story of Blue Archive and GRAC is one that sounds right out of a movie. But I think, as some people have pointed out, the whole premise of Blue Archive is you, their teacher, a responsible adult protecting your students from the evil adults of the world. So very ironically, this real-life story straight up sounds like a story in Blue Archive. Though technically a happy ending, to my knowledge, up till this very day, nobody was actually arrested for what happened at GRAC, despite the government previously stating intent to press criminal charges. Well, at least the gacha players
That doesn't surprise me.
fans are sometimes seen as this weird group of people online playing this weird gacha game. But when you look at what they've achieved, god damn, these fans are based. Yes, they took down a whole corrupt government branch here. But on another note, Blue Archive...
I don't know, I think you're saying a little bit too much. Like, yeah, they got it taken down, sure, but it was more that the uprising of the people made the government look a little bit deeper into this group, and then they found fraud that had nothing to do with the rating of the game. So it was started by Blue Archive, but it was for different reasons, and I guess it ended up positive for them anyway.
Actually even had a whole Red Cross collaboration, and fans made blood donations increase by about 50% in Korea, leading to the highest numbers the country had ever seen. Cute and funny girls are literally saving lives. They lost Galen.
I wish he would stop saying cute and funny.
If there's a lesson to be learned from this story, don't mess with horny anime fans. They will fuck you up. Special thanks to Vicente Pagani and all my other Patreon.
So, very interesting. I mean, if you think about it, the worst thing to happen to crimes is the wrong set of eyes to be on it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if they would have if that wouldn't have happened, they wouldn't have. If they would have made the rating, normal, they wouldn't have gone after them to find the fraud to begin with. So, it's like a nice consequence. Nice butterfly effect. That's a good one. Let's see. So coming up next. I got sent this one as two from Otterly Noah. Antiwoke criticism of Japan. I guess we're just going full on Japan this stream. Antiwoke criticism of Japan media is painfully shallow and not real criticism. So we'll watch this and see if I can actually get some stuff done in this Rimworld game.
Expo for the first time ever. It was honestly an even better time than I'd already anticipated. I made a lot of new friends, I attended some cool panels, and I saw a lot of cool cosplays too. I also got to attend a bunch of premieres for upcoming anime, which is super fun as well. While I was there, one of the premieres I got to see was for Beastars Season 3, which is meant to be the final season of the highly acclaimed Netflix anime called Beastars. A lot of people are definitely looking forward to this final season since Beastars in general has been pretty widely praised for how it tackles different societal issues within a world of anthropomorphic animals. And it does a pretty good job at creating well fleshed out allegories for things that exist in our world. However, a rather infamous group of critics on YouTube and other platforms are not excited about this new season whatsoever and are currently calling it and Beastars overall woke propaganda. And these are the same people that are calling Donkey Kong Bonanza woke propaganda for supposedly having a non-binary ape in it. And the ones also currently worrying whether the upcoming Metal Gear Solid remake will be woke propaganda as well. Yes, this is somehow real. I'm talking about none other than anti-woke critics of Japanese media who apparently really don't like Beastars, DK Bonanza, Metal Gear Solid, and many, many more things. Definitely makes you wonder what they actually do like sometimes.
No kidding.
Critics tend to be very superficial with many of their criticisms towards media overall, rather than looking at the things you should criticize when looking at any piece of media, such as storytelling, pacing, characterization, things like that. They'd rather look at the latest Lord of the Rings anime film and say that movie failed because it had a female protagonist, even though there were many other reasons that movie failed that didn't involve its female protagonist. Or they'll get mad at Nintendo saying they won't get rid of DEI policies and inclusion and call them woke and say they'll fail as a company in the next 5 years. Oh yeah, clearly in the next 5 years, Nintendo is gonna be totally out of money. Good luck substantiating that claim, guys.
Too many black people in anime. Yeah, right. I mean, he's right on the money here when it comes to these guys. They did it with Square Enix too. Like this company, it's falling apart. All these companies are gonna fail. And it's like, okay, where? Like, how do you think these companies are gonna fail? Like, what makes you think they're gonna fail? They're billion-dollar companies. They're not gonna fail overnight. They'll change their strategies back to making money, and they won't even think twice about what the anti-wokers are thinking. So, but I'm liking to hear the idea of like how superficial it is with Japanese games. And I think that really started to come to light with Assassin's Creed recently.
Guys, so today I want to look at some of these anti-woke Japanese media criticisms, talk about why they're not real criticism, and talk about what criticism of Japanese media should look like overall. To start, let's look at one of the topics that a lot of these anti-woke grifters have a problem with that I mentioned before, that being Nintendo's policy regarding DEI and inclusion. These have actually spawned from two things in particular. Earlier, in May of this year, Nintendo of America's president, Doug Bowser, made a statement talking about the importance of DEI and diversity within Nintendo. Exactly 1 month after this was said, Nintendo launched their highly anticipated flagship console, the Nintendo Switch 2. One thing that was reported upon when the console officially launched was the changes made to the Mii Maker system. On previous Nintendo systems, when booting up the Mii Maker, you would get a choice between two different starter Miis that you could customize to your liking later on, one being labeled a boy Mii and the other being labeled a girl Mii. However, for Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo has dropped those two labels, although the Miis they give you are the same exact Miis they've used in previous versions of the Mii Maker. But unfortunately, all it took were these two
Woke Tendo
DIE and also the changes to the Mii Maker for the anti-woke grifters to get pretty upset. One such anti-woke grifter who made a video talking about how he thinks Nintendo is all woke propaganda now was Dr. Disaster. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
One of the most insufferable things in the world is watching someone behave performatively in front of a crowd.
which is exactly what we see when all of these dudes talk.
Kind of funny you described yourself and most other anti-woke grifters there. Kettle meat pot.
Nintendo has kowtowed to the gender politics at a base level on their new console. It looks as though the Mii characters are now being made genderless.
I have seen everything that has ever happened, ever will happen, ever could happen, and yet, what the hell is this?
Yeah, we thought we'd seen it all, but Nintendo appears to have bowed down and listened to the woke bozos who run Nintendo of America these days. They, as a company, are once again utterly late to the party on this sort of thing, considering how far gamers have veered away from these politics in recent years.
I find it funny he tries to say that Nintendo is late to the party on woke politics or whatever, when in actuality, these are just the same two Miis they always use in their Mii makers. Whenever you boot up Mii Maker, whether it's on 3DS, Wii, Wii U, or Switch, you always get two Miis to start with for your template, and Nintendo Switch 2 is doing the exact same thing here. These are quite literally the same two Miis Nintendo has always provided for starter Miis, but it's
Gamers, I can't goon to the female me anymore because it doesn't say female. What if there's a penis under there?
Seems Dr. Disaster doesn't quite understand that.
But Nintendo has stubbornly steered into it, making the system virtually unplayable.
Oh yes, clearly Nintendo Switch 2 is completely unplayable just because they changed the Mii Maker system and kept the same starter Miis but didn't label them the same way they have before. Clearly, the fact that the console launched with a very steep price point and not many games at all to play right away isn't the thing that we should be targeting, just the fact they changed the Mii Maker system. That's obviously the right criticism to make here. Who cares about criticizing the ever-growing price points of video games when you can just call Mii's woke? After this, Dr. Disaster talks about Nintendo's statement on DIE and says it's woke propaganda, and that clearly they're trying to pander to an audience that doesn't exist in his opinion for some reason. And apparently Nintendo is foregoing the original gamers like himself in his words.
They don't care about story, they care about presenting something that fits their diversity paradise. It's from these corporate shields that the term modern audience was coined. That isn't something that gamers made up. That came directly from these big corporate entities who believe they're doing something wonderful by pandering to a group of non-existent people that they...
Or they're just trying to talk about the modern audience as in the audience that's currently here in the modern age.
Imagined
I've never understood the modern audience thing.
Would take over gaming spaces and replace the original gamers.
You are wrong! All of you are wrong!
Okay, so first off, a lot of corporations discuss DIE and being inclusive when it comes to their hiring processes overall. This isn't just the gaming industry. Places like Lowe's or Macy's have this in full display on their websites. And when it comes to fast food places, a lot of them will put DIE on their Glassdoor pages to entice people to apply. Plenty of companies do this and have been doing this for a while now. This isn't anything new or part of any woke agenda. Also, I find it really funny that he thinks that Nintendo is pandering towards an audience that doesn't exist and is meant to replace the original gamers. Oh yeah, because clearly black people or Chinese people or any other ethnically diverse group wasn't playing video games when gaming became a thing. Clearly it was all only white people like Dr. Disaster. Clearly they're the only original gamers. Nice try, buddy.
Well, Nintendo is one company in gaming that has used a lot of these buzzwords in the past, but they have largely managed to avoid making games which felt like pandering. Unfortunately, it looks like Nintendo is now steering into this attitude with the Nintendo of America president, Doug Bowser, telling us how important diversity is to their company.
I find it really funny that he tries to claim that Nintendo is only now going in on diversity when really that's kind of always been a big part of their company and the characters they create overall. They've had several strong female protagonists in their games for a very long time now, Samus from Metroid being the prime example, pun totally intended. Plenty of characters from Fire Emblem also represent this mentality like Lyn or Lucina. And Nintendo actually has canonical trans characters too, like Vivian from Paper Mario or Birdo. This isn't something new for them whatsoever, so I'm not really sure why Dr. Disaster seems to think so. Ultimately, Nintendo...
Well, yeah, it's that thing is like, it only works if everything else is a lie. It kind of comes down to that whole thing. Everything else has to be wrong and a lie for this thing, for any of these guys' stuff to be true.
Those products have actually reflected different aspects of diversity for a really long time now, so this just doesn't make any sense. But interestingly enough, while he's called Nintendo woke in a lot of his videos over the past 2 months, Dr. Disaster actually has the opposite opinion when it comes to another video game. In particular, when it comes to Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater Delta, which is a remake of the original Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater that's set to come out next month. I find this very interesting because he claims that this game, which is set to be an exact remake of the original Snake Eater, is not woke, which if you know anything about the original Snake Eater game, you probably know where this is going. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
This is your Admiral, the Dread Pirate Dr. Disaster, and It has been funny over the past few years to watch modern video games promote themselves with ugly female main characters. Games like Star Wars Outlaws, as an example, only to watch them get blindsided by piss-poor sales. This is a trend that has happened repeatedly in the past few years, and it speaks to what the actual audience for video games wants. But at least some studios these days are starting to realize that the actual audience for video games has a particular demographics to it. Gamers are mostly male, and funny enough, even the female gamers out there, who certainly do exist, but even they mostly prefer to see masculine male characters and feminine females, meaning that
He's quoting an article that isn't saying what he thinks it says. There was the one that came out that said female characters or female gamers prefer Dr. Disaster because these reviews are a disgrace. Yeah, I agree. He's quoting an article that there was a study done on women and over-sexualized characters, and it didn't say what every gamer thinks it says. It was only for fighting games. Women more often than not wanted to be the strong character, but if they didn't, fit in with the way the woman felt like she looked, then they would pick the more sexualized character over an ugly character. That's all it meant. Like, women do the exact same thing that men do with gaming in a lot of cases. They're looking for someone that looks like them, that kind of represents something close to them, like, white male protagonist number 5.
generally, if these studios would simply make things that appeal to dudes, they would sell a lot more games. That appears to be the conclusion that Konami has
learning the law.
Coming Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. But the thing is, this is a game that has avoided controversy, unlike so many of these other studios these days that go out of their way to embrace woke shit and piss off a massive chunk of the gamers out there.
So, according to Dr. Disaster, there is nothing quote-unquote woke about Metal Gear whatsoever. So, you're telling me that a series that is pretty blatantly anti-capitalist and anti-military and just a critique of the military-industrial complex overall, and one that just so happens to feature a bunch of confirmed LGBT characters isn't quote-unquote woke in your opinion? Because it sounds to me like those are the exact kinds of things that you guys would normally call quote-unquote woke, but it's funny you're not calling it that here. Things like Horizon Zero Dawn and The Last of Us 2, two games you guys often get mad at for being quote-unquote woke, actually explore a lot of the same things that Metal Gear Solid does and has been for a while. So I find it pretty interesting that you guys always call those games that just happen to feature a female protagonist quote-unquote woke, but not this one, which happens to feature a male protagonist, but still explores a lot of the same themes that you guys call quote-unquote woke all the time. Hypocrite much? Ultimately, the reason why Dr. Disaster isn't calling Metal Gear Solid 3 quote-unquote woke, even though by his criteria it probably should be seen as such, is because it has his idealized version of a male protagonist in it. Solid Snake is a strong, competent, stealthy guy with a beard. He's not a female character.
Media literacy. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Most people can't look into, and there's nothing wrong. You don't have to be super media literate, right? You don't have to know all the little details into it, but you can look a little bit further than, it's shooty game about military.
So there's no real reason for Dr. Disaster to try to sell you on the idea that Metal Gear Solid is.
One reason I like story games is, for that very reason, is getting into a story that can tell you something, right? I don't always understand all of it. I'm kind of dumb when it comes to a lot of that stuff, but yeah.
is quote-unquote woke, even though by his criteria it technically is. This just kinda goes to show that these anti-woke critics will only single out something and call it quote-unquote woke when it meets their own particular agenda. There's no real criticism to be found here whatsoever. It's the same exact thing when Clownfish TV finds a satirical article on Kingdom Hearts not being homosexual enough and decides to take it as fact and present it as such.
This one is basically complaining about Sora's sexuality.
It's compulsory heterosexuality.
How can you guys not see this is satire? Nobody in their right mind would take this seriously except for you, apparently. Literally putting the clown in Clownfish TV. Or like when 8-Bit Eric tries to claim that Capcom is woke now just for localizing their games, apparently.
Capcom is going full woke, and it's a freaking shame, ladies.
Too much media literacy is annoying, but too little, and you need to start to self-reflect if you can interpret the media. Yeah, I mean, we watched the video, a while back with that New Crimes Roman guy, and it's like that's the overindulgence of media literacy. Like, you don't have to go that far with it, but but then you get to this side of it where you can't even get a joke or parody or anything else like that without it being an absolute crime.
On their Capcom localization team's Twitter, yes, another localization team causing chaos.
Here's the thing too with people like 8-Bit or any of these guys is once something becomes a word in the anti-woke space, it's suddenly every version of the word is bad. Like, all localizers are now terrible, and it's like, well, that's not the case. There's this small group of localizers that people are having a problem with. Same thing with like consultants. They hear consultancy company now and they're like, oh, it's woke. And I'm like, no. Kingdom Come Deliverance 3 or 2 is using history consultants. That's normal. People have been doing that for years when they're making a game that may not be in their area. It's not the same thing as the Sweet Baby Inc. idea that you have about just diversity for diversity's sake.
They posted this tweet that they're extremely proud of, calling it a global adventure through the lens of game localization. They're trying to make it sound exciting and fun. Do you guys remember when localization meant you were trying to explain to like 9-year-old kids why there's rice cakes in your Pokemon?
Dude, come on. They call them jelly donuts in that episode. They don't call them rice cakes. That's been like a huge localization meme for a long time. Are you really going to try to claim that something like that's been mocked for a long time now is an example of good localization? Nice try, buddy. Or like when Andy Pants Gaming tries to claim a puzzle game is gay and
I remember this one.
Xbox put it on Game Pass.
Well, boys, another week, another crop of gay and games being shoveled into the piggy trough by Microsoft. All you need is help. Dive into a quirky multiplayer co-op puzzle game where adorable, fluffy, cube-shaped creatures collaborate to reach their goals. These
Gotta love Andy Pants. I'm noticing the pattern is that event anti-wokers sound like they're angry or getting aggravated. Well, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? It is an anger... It's rage bait. It's exactly what they have to do to make this stuff work. And you know what? I used to be a victim of it, we'll say. I used to be one of those guys that would get mad at stuff, and then I realized it's not a big deal. Well, I had beliefs in things. Like, my big thing that I really believed in was like, stop changing games, that are already in existence. And some of that was still wrong, right? Stop changing games that are only in existence, and just make your own games. And that's kind of one of the things that turned me away from the anti-woke as a whole was like when companies started making their own games and their own genres. It was suddenly like, well, you're not making the games that we want to play.
Oddly shaped, jostle.
This one, I remember watching this video. This was absolutely ridiculous. Like, these are literally just kids' games, and his whole argument is that colorful is gay and retarded.
Against each other to help solve puzzles together. Like, huh? Xbox, this is the trash you expect me to play? I grew up in an era where Xbox
Crashing out over kids' games. That's right.
Splinter Cell, Max Payne, The Saboteur. That's right, little piggy. Gobble down the gay communist slop Xbox is feeding you like a good little sheep.
Ah yes, clearly this simple puzzle game called All You Need Is Help with little cute animal characters is gay communist slop. It's got woke propaganda written all over it, clearly. Honestly, he's probably just mad because the title tells him exactly what he needs.
Yeah. Yeah, he also talked shit about Wargroove in that same video. I remember seeing it, and I was like, the first one was pretty colorful, right? It was probably because there was a black pirate on the screen, and that's not realistic enough.
Interestingly enough, it's not even just Japanese video games that these anti-woke grifters will get mad at. They've also gotten mad at anime as well before. One anime they've actually gotten mad at is a slightly more unknown one called The Cafe Terrace and Its Goddesses. This is a pretty simple slice of life anime where a young boy inherits his grandmother's cafe where a bunch of young girls work as maids. He must work together with these girls to get the cafe back into tip-top shape and make his grandmother proud. Admittedly, I'm not the biggest fan of this anime since there's a bit too much fan service for my personal liking, but if you like it, more power to you. However, a few different anti-woke grifters got mad at this anime, and not really for the right reasons at all. Let's take a look at one of the videos that was talking about it.
I had no idea that I was going to be making a video on this, but as you can see from the screen, I've been watching certain anime. I have friends that are into anime, and they recommend things from time to time. But something like this, a friend of mine was like, yeah, you should check it out. I think they were having a practical joke on me, but it is what it is. It's called The Cafe Terrace and Its Goddesses. The reason why we're talking about this is because this show, and I watched the first 3 episodes, it made me realize something about myself that I wasn't really fully aware of. This show really helped to put things in perspective. I despise the premise that is apparently a common trope in anime, where you have the main character get beat up by...
Oh, no, really? Really? Listen, I don't watch a lot of anime anymore, but the main protagonist getting beat up by women is a pretty common trope in anime, right? It's still a thing. Come on.
Of the female characters. I cannot stand it. I don't think I've ever been as off-put by a show as I have been with this one just immediately on that premise. The main character's in the bathtub, okay? I don't want to show the actual...
Yeah, it's fairly common comedic relief trope.
Puts up a sign outside of the bathroom saying, I'm in the bathroom. And one of the girls, of course, walks in, and she doesn't have a towel on, she's just naked, just walks right in. The girl stands there and looks at him, and he makes it, acts like an idiot.
Wow, I guess
you could tell this guy's never watched anime. That exact scene is probably in thousands of animes. Yeah, sorry that this is just an anime thing. The dude's crashing out over the most common scenario. Yeah. Come on. Oh.
We can give Templar the award for the best dying sea lion impression.
But then I think it's this chick with the blue hair here. Hears a commotion, comes into the bathroom, sees that he's in the bathroom, gets like anime angry, which is with the eyes and the aura and stuff, and then proceeds to beat him up. Now, when I was watching that, it sent me into an absolutely apoplectic rage. Because I'm sitting
in such a rage that he had to go beat his girlfriend up just to feel more of a man about himself.
You're thinking, if I'm trying to enjoy a bathtub in my house, and I'm letting these girls stay here, they're not paying rent, okay? They're helping out with, with the shop, but I'm trying to enjoy a bath here, and someone intrudes on
Yeah, that's a good point. Did that scene hit too close to home for him?
my time, and they come in and make the situation uncomfortable by not reading that goddamn sign, and then some other chick comes in.
Dude, yeah, this just screams insecure man, like man child. I am a, I'm a man. Oh, these guys are such pussies.
And just loses her temper and starts trying to hit me. I tell you what, I'm knocking that bitch out. And then I'm kicking her out of my house.
Okay, so right off the bat, he says this character put a sign on the door telling people not to come in since
definitely soy wife beater vibes.
True, if you watch the episode. They actually make it a very particular point that he didn't put a sign on the bathroom door, and that's admittedly why the girl accidentally walks in. So right away, this is already spreading misinformation. But I think the thing I find more interesting about this is that he thinks the fact that this scene features a man getting beat up by a bunch of girls is somehow woke propaganda. No, that's really not what this is at all. It's just this show's attempt at a gag or joke. Anime has a history of this in general, sort of mixing fan service to try and create a sense of comedy, like in this scene here. Admittedly, I've never found this sort of thing personally funny, and I don't really find it funny in this scene either, but I can see they're trying to make it come off as a joke. It's just sort of a common thing in anime to do this overall. There's no woke propaganda going on here at all, so I'm not sure why he's trying to claim that. Doesn't really make any sense. Just because there's a scene in an anime where a guy gets beat up in a bathtub by a girl doesn't mean that's woke propaganda at all. That's just a bad attempt at fan service.
Now, if you want to know the type of main character that I like, well, I mean, depending on the genre, but if for something like this, I would like a competent, well put together main character who is able to learn new things, learn new skills, adapt to certain situations, but ultimately has a firm rooting on his life. Now, the main character of this show is a college student.
Like, none of these people actually have like any kind of media literacy. I won't say that like I have great media literacy, a white person 2,418. I'll say that I don't have any like I can't sit down like some people do and dissect the movie and things like that. But you have to be just you have to be absolutely not thinking to have this kind of view, right?
It's not easy.
This character needs to learn things. Yeah, that's kind of a thing that most stories want you to do. Conflict, growth, things that are very basic to a story.
Even a high school student. So this guy in college is getting domed on by a bunch of women. I'm looking at this going, you intrude on my personal space. You don't take the time to look at the sign that I put up. I'm doubling your rent. If not, just expelling you on the spot. Like Harry Potter, I'm doing an Expelliarmus. I gotta share my frustration. I hate this trope. This weak men trope. Let him take that hand and just with the might of Zeus, just slap the ever-living... I don't know if I can say that on YouTube.
I'm not really sure why you think it's the trait of a competent main male character to be slapping women. I think we've gotten to the real reason that Templar wants to label this as woke propaganda here. He's ultimately just an incel. This is also very evident with his live-action adaptation of...
This dude would probably never have the balls to actually reach out and slap a woman.
He basically just goes on a rant saying the anime isn't highly sexualized anymore, and now it's too woke because all the characters are ugly.
CEOs, dictators.
Oh God. They're all ugly.
Or at least they're ugly in his point of view, I guess, because they're not showing boobs every 2 seconds. Thankfully, that's pretty easy to see through here, but interestingly enough, he's actually not the only one who's gotten mad at an anime before and called it woke propaganda. Another very similar thing has actually happened before with Nerdrotic, who is basically the second poster child for anti-woke criticism next to the critical drinker. In particular, Nerdrotic did a review of Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim, which is an anime film made by Warner Brothers back in 2024. This film was very loosely based off of some of the appendices in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings novels, and honestly there are a lot of problems with it, but as you can probably imagine, it stars a female main character, so you can probably already imagine where Nerdrotic's take on this is gonna go. Let's see what he had to say.
Warner Brothers couldn't possibly make the same mistakes as Amazon, like wildly deviating from the lore, making up characters that end up subverting the characters that are actually written in the story, and they couldn't possibly go with a girl boss, could they? Well, now that I've seen the film, They went with a girl boss.
So, no, the thing that brought this movie under was not the fact that it featured a quote-unquote girl boss. Something like Prey features a quote-unquote girl boss, as a lot of these anti-woke grifters would call it, and is actually a good movie and was well received. Having a female main character is the thing that brings the movie down. What does bring Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim down, however, is pretty much everything else and all the things that really matter when making a film. The animation in this film is incredibly shoddy looking and really cheap, and you can tell they just rushed it. As a matter of fact, this entire movie was rushed because it was swept out into theaters in order to meet a deadline so that Warner Brothers didn't lose the rights to Lord of the Rings to adapt into film. Their contract states they have to release a Lord of the Rings film in theaters every so often in order to hold on to the rights, so that's exactly why this film exists.
This is a thing that's happened with Spider-Man too. That, you know, a lot of the Spider-Man movies we've gotten, some of the ones that are even less, you know, popular, are because they have to get a movie out to keep their rights to it, and it just ends up ruining the story because you're not making it because you want to make a Spider-Man movie or you want to make a Lord of the Rings movie. You're making it so that you can hold on to something.
There was no passion or love put into this film at all. It basically just exists as a corporate checkmark so they can hold on to the rights for the films. It has nothing to do with the fact that it features a female main character. It has everything to do with the fact that why it exists to begin with. But Nerdrotic doesn't really seem to understand that and is honestly focusing on the wrong thing here.
But it wouldn't be a Mary Sue story if we didn't have the guy who Hera stole the Valor from telling her she should be queen. But she doesn't want to wear a crown because she doesn't need no man and she doesn't want no kids. And now we know why she's left out of the Rohirrim annals of history. She's a lesbian.
Okay, so nowhere in this movie at all do they ever say Hera is a lesbian. I really don't know how Nerdrotic came up with that, but even if she was, that wouldn't be the thing to knock against her for her character in this film. I think there are actually a lot of other things you could say about Hera in this film, because I personally have a lot of issues with this movie overall, none of which have to do with the fact it features a female protagonist. Like I said before, the cheap animation is definitely a huge turnoff for me, but I also think the story is just super underwhelming. For those unaware, this film is actually adapting 3 pages of an appendices in Lord of the Rings that actually talks about the origin of Helm's Deep. The story is pretty short given it's only 3 pages, but the thing is, this film felt the need to stretch that out into 2 hours and 14 minutes. That makes the pacing of the film feel super off as opposed to the original story it's based on, and honestly, this story is just stretched super thin here to fit a 2 hour and 14 minute mark. This film was also a financial failure for Warner Brothers, but again, not because it has a female protagonist in it. This film was actually barely marketed at all when it was coming out. And the one big trailer that Warner Brothers did release for this film just featured a bunch of scenes from the Peter Jackson trilogy from back in the 2000s. This obviously was an attempt to try and pander to nostalgia for fans of the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, but honestly, if you look at the story that those films were adapting as opposed to the story this one was, that wasn't a good tactic. The entire Lord of the Rings...
Yeah, I'll say I didn't even know that this movie was coming out, and it just never like, even when I did find out about it, I was like, oh, okay. So anyways,
trilogy and the small story about Helm's Deep's origins are 2 totally different things to adapt. So trying to draw comparisons between the 2 within marketing really wasn't a smart move on Warner Brothers' part at all. Ultimately, the Lord of the Rings anime film didn't fail because it had a female protagonist. It failed because of poor marketing decisions and also the fact the story was stretched way too far. And again, the animation quality on this one is honestly pretty crappy too. There are so many other more legitimate things you could throw at Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim as real criticisms, but Nerdrotic just isn't doing that. He just wants to try and pinpoint the fact that this film has a female protagonist as its main downfall when that's just not really the case at all. But believe it or not, Nerdrotic and Tactical Templar are not even the only 2 people that have created bad faith criticism revolving around anime. Probably one of the most infamous people that does this is none other than Rev Says Destiny.
Of course. Of course. When you're talking about Japanese stuff, you've got to bring up Rev.
A few times before on this channel, but especially with a topic like this, he honestly seems like probably the most applicable person here. One of the things that Rev is most notable for is being a lol He will often try to create a narrative that there's an entire group of quote-unquote anime tourists out there that are ruining lolly and anime, and making it so that the original fans of anime don't get what they want. And yes, that is as ridiculous and nonsensical as it sounds. Rev is probably one of the most notorious examples of these grifter types when it comes to Japanese media, because he doesn't really hone in on the things you should look at when criticizing any media. He will often only criticize media or different audiences if there's lolly things involved and if it's getting removed. A very good example of this is the time that Rev got upset when a certain piece of art got removed from the r/Hololive subreddit. In particular, this was a piece of art showcasing different VTubers that are a part of Hololive in lieu of a certain on H-word anime. No, I am not making this up. And lo and behold, Rev made an entire video on this.
Wow, that I didn't know.
Hey, what's up guys? Rev here. Today we're gonna discuss some culture. Proof that a picture can be worth 1,000 words. Until it's banned, of course. So here's the thread, an original piece of art posted on the official Hololive subreddit. To sum this up, if you know, you know. But in case you don't know, or if you want to sit back and reminisce for a few seconds if you do, this artwork is a reference to Shoujo Ramune. What is that, one might ask? It's a cute anime about a couple of adolescents learning about life, doing some idol training, having some yogurt, hanging out at bus stops, a very wholesome slice of life anime. Okay, so it's a very popular on hentai.
Huh, maybe they didn't want something that sexualizes underage girls. Doesn't seem that odd to me. And this is basically Rev's entire shtick. He will constantly defend things like this. Ultimately, there's no real criticism to be found here because he won't really discuss things in depth outside of lolly-based content. And really, all the people I've discussed here don't actually offer any sort of nuanced criticism when it comes to Japanese media. They really only get upset.
It's not just Japanese media. I mean, he's basically just kind of going over what an anti-woker is. They don't give any actual criticism. They look for something that they can call woke. Unfortunately, yeah, deep as a puddle. Unfortunately, a lot of times it just makes them sound racist when they're like, why is this person black? Why is there a gay person in here? Why? Why isn't it the exact same game I want over and over and over again? Gaming media is woke. Which is like, to me, it's enraging because it's taking away from the problems that we've been fighting at with games forever. You know, microtransactions, bad business practices, what else can you call to, you know, just evil, you know, companies getting shut down, people leaving. I mean, there's so many things, but it's always got to be wrapped up in this anti-woke tinge for them, which is just distracting from actual points. Frat culture, yeah, definitely frat culture.
Over
what the heck?
Superficial things such as a female character having a starring role in an anime, or things like lolly getting.
Jesus.
They won't actually bother to talk about story elements or character development or things that really matter when discussing any media because they just don't really care about that. They're simply making these videos to meet their own agenda. But interestingly enough, there actually is another side to this coin. Some of these anti-woke grifters will actually try to use Japanese media as a comparison point to American media to try and call American media quote-unquote woke. And yes, I wish I was making that up, but sadly this is a real thing. Obviously, the majority of the anti-woke grifters will generally look to mainstream American media to try to call that woke, like things like WandaVision or the Fantastic Four or Ironheart or The Acolyte. It's usually these big block
or Superman. They're saying Superman's failing even though it seems to be most, you know, completely loved. I don't know much about what's going on with it, but it doesn't seem like it's meeting the narrative of it's not making money.
Blockbuster franchises like Marvel and Star Wars that they often get mad at. But believe it or not, there actually is one channel that tries to use Japanese media to try and call all American media woke and tries to say you should check out Japanese media instead. This channel is called Ranting for Vengeance.
Oh God, ranting for vengeance. I mean, this guy he's just a racist. That's all there is to it.
Right wannabe will constantly rant about comic books. This guy really hates American comics. But I think the funniest thing he's done is actually try to use Japanese manga as a comparison point towards American comics and try to say that Japanese manga isn't quote-unquote woke while saying that all American comics are. And if you look at a lot of the manga he brings up, it's really funny if you know the content of them. Because by these guys' definition, there actually are a lot of quote-unquote woke elements in the manga that he brings up. Let's take a look at one of his videos and see what he has to say.
So, do you ever find yourself sick and tired of the Fantastic Four and whatever new crap DC is putting out, like Superman? Well, there is a solution. You could go back and read the old comics, or there's something that might even be better: anime and manga. Now, before you laugh, I'm not talking about your bullshit manga and anime that everybody loves, like Attack on Titan and My Hero Academia and Jujutsu Kaisen. That's a load of trash. I'm going to be telling you about the real anime and manga that is superior to anything the West has ever put out. I'm just kind of sick of Fantastic Four and Superman. I don't know about you, it might be funny to rag on it for a bit, but it's not just going to be my entire life attacking Fantastic Four.
I love how he says
He's about.
If you look at his page, the next two videos he made after making this manga one were exactly that, him bashing Fantastic Four for being woke propaganda. Way to hypocrite, goob from Meet the Robinsons.
There's gonna be a few anime and manga that you should check out if you're sick of American comics and American movies and TV shows. So the ones I'm gonna be talking about today are ones that will be available or are available now, and are ones that not many people have ever talked about. So after some research and the suggestions from the comments, I've figured out some like Berserk.
Okay, so admittedly this is low. Berserk, an unknown manga, is absolutely wild. Berserk is like one of the foundational manga and anime that everybody talks about. How could you have not heard of this one before? I feel like that's like saying you haven't heard of Gundam or Akira. It's one of those major pieces of Japanese anime or manga that everybody knows about. And it's easily one of the most influential as well. Stuff like Dark Souls or Dragon's Dogma or Soul Calibur or Final Fantasy VII and Devil May Cry even were all influenced by Berserk. Heck, even other manga and anime like Chainsaw Man or Attack on Titan were inspired by Berserk. So obviously there is the possibility that Ranting for Vengeance hadn't somehow heard of Berserk before, but the thing is, everybody else knows about it. That's not an unknown manga. Him trying to label Berserk as an unknown manga is just honestly super disingenuous.
I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, but the thing
I feel like Berserk is like one of those the first of like the really grim dark stuff. Maybe there was stuff before it, but at least dark fantasy. And that game that book gets really gruesome. I have the first collector's section of it because I've never read the thing fully through, and it's one that I've wanted to read. Though it's hard for me to get into because I hate the main character in the beginning. I hate God, what's his name? Either way, I just don't like how much of an asshole he is in the beginning.
Thing is really badass and better than almost every American comic out there. Screw the Killing Joke, screw Green Arrow.
Guts. Griffin is the rapey demon. Well, human who became a demon.
Green Lantern. Screw most DC comics, which are woke garbage, by the way. And I'm not saying that Marvel doesn't do that either, because they do, and it's insufferable.
So this is the part I find the funniest of all. Not only does Ranting for Vengeance think that...
I mean, I've never read the manga, like that's why I got it to start reading it, but I have watched the anime.
Berserk is a unknown manga, but he also thinks that it's not quote-unquote woke. The thing is, there actually are a number of LGBT characters in Berserk, which if Ranting for Vengeance actually read the manga, he would know this. And this is something he'd probably dismiss as quote-unquote woke propaganda as well. There are two explicitly stated homosexual characters in Berserk, the first being Donovan and the second being Genin. And even outside of that, there's pretty notable gay subtext between Griffith and Guts. This has always been a thing since the manga has been running, but apparently Ranting for Vengeance just didn't see that. It's funny that he calls all American comics quote-unquote woke propaganda and tries to recommend you Japanese comics instead, but the Japanese comics he's given you still are quote-unquote woke by his criteria. The jokes really write themselves here. But don't worry everybody, the fun doesn't stop here. Goth Kid from South Park has another pretty telling recommendation for manga here.
This one is a bit more common and many people know about it, but kind of brush it off as a comedy, which it is most certainly not. I'm talking about the hard-boiled noir manga that beats Marvel and DC any day, which is City Hunter. Now I'm recommending the manga, which will soon be in print in a massive omnibus, but also I'm recommending the badass anime. Now I might piss some people off here, but have you ever watched Cowboy Bebop? And you thought that the main guy was cool. Oh, he's this badass who's kind of like a bounty hunter, private detective in space. This guy is just going around blowing people away and he's this wisecracking noir character. Yeah, well, he was ripped off directly from 70s Japanese noir movies and this manga right here. So it follows Ryo Saiba, known as the City Hunter, who works as a sweeper, which is basically a private investigator, mercenary assassin in the streets of Tokyo. Now, if you're not sold already, then I don't know what's wrong with you, but basically the manga and the anime take from American 80s action movies, they take from Miami Vice, 40s noir, hard-boiled pulp novels, meshing together to create something that is
So they take from Western ideals?
truly one of the best things I've come across. The best part is, in new manga and anime, the protagonists cry and are wimps, but this guy is just an absolute Chad who's always holding a beautiful babe and blown away an evil scumbag with his 357 Magnum. And that's a common trend you'll see with a lot of these good manga and anime, is the fact that the main dudes are not wimps like Deku or Eren Yeager, but are instead more manly than America ever was.
Okay, I find this really funny because he seems to think that City Hunter embraces toxic masculinity, when in actuality, if you read it, that's not really what happens in that manga at all. The main character of City Hunter, Ryo, is a pervert who often does try to get with different women, but usually he doesn't and is punished because the manga does recognize this is wrong. There are many times in this manga where Ryo actually does come off as a selfish character and embraces toxic masculinity, but he's actually punished for that. And interestingly enough, it's the times when he doesn't act like this that he actually does get the girl, or people actually
Media literacy.
want to be around him because he's not being a selfish jerk. Kylo Ren here seems to think that City Hunter is celebrating toxic masculinity when, if he actually read it, you would see that it doesn't. And I also find it especially interesting when you look at what he said about the French comic Black Sad in the past as opposed to what he says about City Hunter.
Yeah, this comic might be taking inspiration from some French stuff, but to be honest with you, every time somebody says that to me, I just get annoyed. You're telling me to go read some French comic that has like 2 pages, because I don't like French comics. Stuff like Black Sad sucks.
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity.
Huh, funny, because that's exactly what Black Sad is too. The comic you just said sucks. Funny enough, both Black Sad and City Hunter are about toxic masculinity tropes.
He must have a problem with furries.
Albeit in different ways. John Black Sad isn't quite as much of a womanizer as Ryo from City Hunter is, but he still definitely very much is that, and that is part of his character. But funny enough, just like Ryo, this is something he's punished for. This isn't something that's really celebrated as much as deconstructed here. I don't know how Ranting Revenge managed to walk away from reading both Black Sad and City Hunter and seem to completely misunderstand what both of them are about. It's completely mind-blowing. Overall, ultimately anti-woke criticism of Japanese media really just isn't real criticism whatsoever, just like how anti-woke criticism of any media isn't real criticism whatsoever. Rather than looking at the things you should analyze when criticizing any piece of media like storytelling, characterization, cinematography, all the things that really matter, these guys would rather get mad if there's a woman in the lead role. Either that, or they just complain about there being no lolly, or just completely misunderstand the point of these media overall. Like the video's title says, it's painfully shallow, and it really isn't real criticism. Honestly, stuff like this is really disappointing to me because I really think it defeats media literacy. These are incredibly poor representations of what a review should really be. And honestly, that's why I started doing this series of videos about a month ago now. I'm really tired of seeing this sort of thing pass as a review when it it's really just somebody trying to push their own agenda and not actually criticizing anything. Thankfully, you all have been really receptive to what I have to say, and honestly, I really appreciate it. Thanks for enjoying this series over the past month, everyone. I'm definitely gonna keep doing more videos like this. But since I just talked about a bunch of anti-woke reviewers you probably shouldn't watch, I'm gonna recommend some other reviewers for you to check out. All these channels I'm about to mention do tackle Japanese media in a very critical, analytical sense, I feel like, so I definitely recommend them. First up, Neosai. Neosai is actually a very good critic that often analyzes Japanese video games.
Okay, if you want to go check that out, you know, look up Otterly Noah. Not bad. I mean, like I said, it's the criticism for Japanese isn't really any different than the criticisms they have for anything else. It's all very surface level. They like to use what they think is popular to, you know, try and gain whatever side that they can. You know, it's very, very on the nose, or what happens in the moment. But if you look just a little bit deeper, you find out that they're really just full of shit. So that, I think, was our last video for the night. Boom, boom, boom. I am going to, I built a little bit here. We got a little room coming out, our freezer, the kitchen. I'll start building other stuff into, get our first bedroom going. I'm going to try not to die on this one. I'm going to play this one only when I'm on stream, I think. Maybe I'll have a few days, like maybe we can do one where I just game and have y'all come in and talk, or y'all can send me videos as I game and things like that. I think that would be fun. But other than that, I'm going to call it a night, guys. I want to thank you for coming by. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. And y'all have a wonderful evening.